Welcome, brave souls, to the shadowed corners of Illinois, where justice and punishment linger in silence, and where the walls themselves seem to remember every crime, every scream, every death. Tonight, we step into places where time stopped, prisons abandoned, cells empty, yet filled with echoes of the past. Prisons are designed to contain the living, yet many of Illinois' historic penitentiaries seem to trap something far more sinister: the spirits of the restless, the forgotten, and the damned. Visitors report hearing whispers behind locked doors, seeing ghostly figures pacing cold hallways, and feeling the oppressive weight of years of suffering in the air. From the industrial city centers to small rural towns, Illinois prisons carry stories of violence, despair, and unfinished business. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted prisons in Illinois where time stopped, each with a chilling history and lingering spirits. Some experiences are documented, others whispered in local legend, but all share one unsettling truth: some walls never forget. Take a deep breath, step carefully, and join me as we walk the empty halls of Illinois' most haunted prisons. If you dare. Joliet Correctional Center, located in Joliet, Illinois, stands as a looming testament to more than a century of incarceration, punishment, and human suffering. Constructed in 1858, the prison was designed in a Gothic revival style, its stone walls and towering gates giving it a foreboding presence that has lingered long after its closure in 2002. Though decommissioned, the facility's reputation has not faded. Locals, paranormal investigators, and curious explorers alike have long reported that Joliet Correctional Center is far from empty. Visitors describe experiences that range from faint, unsettling sounds to full-bodied apparitions, suggesting that the echoes of the past refuse to remain silent. From the moment one approaches the massive wrought-iron gates, there is a sense of history pressing down, a heavy atmosphere that hints at the countless stories of hardship and despair contained within the walls. Inside, the cell blocks stretch in long, narrow corridors, their stone floors worn smooth by decades of foot traffic. Many who enter report feeling an almost immediate chill, a sudden drop in temperature that cannot be explained by the season or the weather outside. Some claim that the air itself seems dense, as if saturated with the energy of those who suffered or died within the prison's confines. Screams are the most commonly reported phenomenon. Visitors have described hearing anguished cries echoing through empty hallways, seemingly coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. These screams are said to fluctuate in intensity, sometimes distant and echoing faintly, other times sharp and piercing, as if replaying the pain of a past moment. Some have suggested that these sounds are residual energy, imprints of the countless punishments, beatings, and executions that occurred over the prison's long operational history. Others insist that the cries are more than echoes, that they are warnings, calls from restless spirits who have not found peace. Shadowy figures are another frequent occurrence. Walkers through the cell blocks and common areas report glimpses of dark shapes moving just out of the corner of their eyes. These figures often pace the hallways silently, sometimes pausing at a cell door, or leaning briefly against walls before vanishing entirely. Some visitors claim to see more defined forms, dressed in the faded uniforms of prisoners or correctional officers, their faces obscured in darkness, yet unmistakably human in shape. These apparitions are said to vanish when approached, leaving no trace but the lingering sense of being watched. Doors slamming or opening without cause is yet another hallmark of the prison's ghostly activity. Many explorers recount moments when a cell door suddenly swings shut with a violent bang, or when heavy iron gates move slightly, as if pushed by an invisible hand. Such incidents often occur in areas with no discernible drafts or mechanical faults, leaving witnesses unsettled and alert to the presence of forces beyond their understanding. These seemingly minor disturbances are often accompanied by the sensation of pressure, the feeling that unseen eyes are following each movement. The solitary confinement cells, small and claustrophobic, are particularly notorious. Those who have ventured into these cramped spaces report feelings of overwhelming dread, sudden headaches, and the sense of being trapped by something unseen. Several have claimed to hear whispers, indistinct at first, then gradually forming words, pleas for help, murmurs of anger, or fragments of past conversations echoing through time. Many also report seeing apparitions through the narrow bars, ghostly inmates standing silently, their eyes dark and hollow, as if pleading to be noticed. These cell blocks are often described as the epicenter of the prison's paranormal activity, the areas where the past feels most alive. The prison yard and exterior areas also carry stories of ghostly encounters. Some visitors have seen figures standing near the perimeter fences, silhouetted against the sky, only to vanish when approached. Others report hearing the clang of metal chains or the distant echo of marching feet, though the yard remains empty. Even the old administrative buildings and guard towers have been linked to spectral activity, with apparitions of officers making rounds or gesturing as if enforcing rules long after the prison's closure. Investigators have attempted to document the phenomena through cameras, audio recorders, and thermal imaging, often capturing unexplained anomalies. Glowing orbs drifting down hallways, unexplained cold spots, and faint figures appearing in photographs have all been recorded, lending a level of credence to the eyewitness accounts. While skeptics argue for natural explanations such as drafts, echoes, or electrical interference, many who have spent time inside Joliet Correctional Center insist that the experiences cannot be so easily dismissed. The sense of history, of lives lived and lost, is palpable, and it seems to linger in ways both visible and invisible. The prison's long history of executions, violent altercations, and harsh conditions may offer some insight into why it remains haunted. For nearly 150 years, the walls of Joliet Correctional Center contained human suffering on an immense scale. Countless inmates passed through its gates, some leaving, many perishing within. Correctional officers endured the weight of maintaining order in an environment rife with tension, danger, and despair. This accumulation of intense emotion, fear, and pain may be the source of the paranormal activity reported today, creating an environment where past and present intersect in unsettling ways. For visitors willing to explore, the prison provides a haunting glimpse into a bygone era of American penal history. The echoes of footsteps, shadowy figures pacing the corridors, doors slamming on their own, and the occasional whisper from an unseen presence remind all who enter that Joliet Correctional Center is far more than a relic of the past. It is a place where memory, history, and spirit converge, a living monument to the people who lived, suffered, and in some cases, never left. The Gothic architecture, the iron bars, and the silent hallways all serve as backdrops for a story that continues to unfold, with whispers and shadows serving as the enduring voice of the prison's restless past. Menard Correctional Center, located in Chester, Illinois, stands as one of the state's oldest and most infamous prisons. Its history, stretching back to the 1800s, built to house the most dangerous offenders of the era. The facility has seen generations of inmates pass through its gates, many of whom left permanent marks, both physically and spiritually under structure. Today, long after its operational days have left indelible traces, Menard is widely considered one of the most haunted prisons in the region. Paranormal enthusiasts, historians, and casual explorers alike report experiences that defy explanation, suggesting that the prison's dark history has left echoes that continue to reverberate through its stone corridors. Visitors entering Menard are immediately struck by the imposing architecture. The thick stone walls, iron-barred windows, and towering guard towers create a sense of foreboding even during the daytime. Shadows cling to the corners, stretching unnaturally along the hallways, and the faint smell of damp stone and rusted metal permeates the air. Many who explore the facility for the first time report an overwhelming feeling of being watched, an almost palpable pressure that seems to follow every step. The atmosphere is heavy, dense with the accumulated energy of more than a century of confinement, despair, and occasionally, violence. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves disembodied voices. Visitors have described hearing whispers in empty corridors, voices that appear to come from nowhere, and yet sound disturbingly close. These whispers range from indistinct murmurs to faint pleas for help, often catching explorers off guard. Some investigators claim to hear fragments of conversations between inmates and guards, as if the past is replaying itself through the walls. In solitary confinement cells, the whispers are said to grow louder, more urgent, creating a suffocating atmosphere that forces visitors to leave quickly. Phantom footsteps are another hallmark of Menard's reported hauntings. Many visitors describe hearing the echo of boots or shuffling feet on the stone floors, even when they are alone. The sounds often follow them down long hallways, pausing and resuming with a cadence that seems deliberate, almost as if the spirits of past inmates are retracing familiar paths. Some explorers have attempted to follow the sounds, only to find the corridors empty, the footsteps ceasing as mysteriously as they began. Solitary confinement areas are particularly notorious. These cramped, dark cells have been described as epicenters of paranormal activity within the prison. Explorers frequently report sudden drops in temperature that defy explanation. A cold so sharp it chills the bone despite heavy clothing. Some claim to feel unseen hands brushing past their shoulders, or even a weight pressing against their chest, making it difficult to breathe. Shadowy figures are occasionally glimpsed standing silently in the corners of the cells, vanishing when approached, leaving only the lingering sense of presence. The intensity of these experiences suggests that Menard's solitary cells are far more than physical spaces. They are places where memory and spirit converge in a way that transcends the living world. Doors opening and closing on their own is another frequently cited phenomenon. Heavy iron doors, once used to confine and isolate inmates, are reported to swing open or shut without any mechanical cause. Witnesses often describe a chain of events. A door creaks unexpectedly, a shadow passes by, and a cold draft follows. These movements are usually subtle, but persistent, and many believe they are attempts by restless spirits to communicate, to remind visitors of the lives once constrained within these walls. The prison yard and exterior grounds also carry their share of ghostly accounts. Some visitors report shadowy figures pacing along the perimeter fences, standing silently near guard towers, or walking in the distance, only to vanish when approached. Others hear distant voices calling across the yard, or the clang of chains echoing faintly in the night. Even the administrative buildings have been linked to paranormal activity, with reports of apparitions moving through offices or disappearing into walls. These experiences suggest that Menard's haunted reputation extends beyond the confines of the blocks, encompassing the entire facility. The prison's long history of violence, harsh conditions, and death may help explain why it remains a focal point for paranormal activity. Menard has seen countless inmates endure brutal punishments, isolation, and sometimes fatal incidents. Guards, too, faced the tension and danger inherent in managing such a volatile population. The intense emotions generated over more than a century, fear, anger, despair, may have left an imprint, creating the conditions for the unexplained phenomena reported today. Investigators armed with cameras, audio recorders, and thermal imaging equipment have captured unusual anomalies. Glowing orbs drifting through hallways, cold spots with no clear source, and faint figures appearing on video are commonly documented. While skeptics argue that drafts, old structures, or natural acoustics can explain some experiences, many who have spent time inside Menard insist that something beyond the physical remains. The energy of the place, they argue, is almost tangible, a presence that both chills and fascinates those who enter. For those willing to step inside, Joliet Correctional Center offers more than a glimpse into the harsh realities of historical incarceration. It offers an encounter with the past in a deeply personal way. From the echoing footsteps and whispering voices to shadowy figures pacing cell blocks and chilling drafts in solitary confinement, every corner of the prison seems alive with memory. Visitors leave with stories that linger, a reminder that history is not confined to books or records, but can manifest in the spaces where it occurred. Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois, stands as one of the most infamous prisons in the United States. Its reputation built not only on the lives it confined, but also on the dark history that permeates its walls. Opened in the late 1920s, Stateville was designed with a unique roundhouse layout, a circular cell block, allowing guards to observe inmates with minimal effort. While this architectural innovation served its intended purpose, it also became a stage for countless tragedies, violence, and despair over the decades. Today, long after many sections have been abandoned or left to decay, Stateville is considered by paranormal enthusiasts and visitors alike as one of the most haunted correctional facilities in the country, with reports of ghostly phenomena that defy explanation. Visitors first notice the imposing presence of the prison as they approach the sprawling complex. The high, gray stone walls and heavy gates convey an immediate sense of foreboding. The roundhouse structure dominates the facility, its concentric circles of cells rising multiple stories. Each window and doorway a potential conduit for the lingering energy of decades of confinement. Many explorers report feeling a subtle but persistent sense of being watched, a pressure in the air that follows them as they traverse hallways and open yards. The atmosphere is thick, heavy with echoes of the past, and even those unfamiliar with the prison's history often experience unease within minutes of entering. One of the most common reports from visitors involves shadowy figures seen at night, particularly in the exercise yards. Witnesses describe movements that seem purposeful, figures pacing along fences, standing silently near walls, or walking in slow, methodical loops that mirror the routines once followed by the living inmates. These apparitions often vanish when approached, leaving only the memory of a fleeting presence and the unsettling sense that the yard is not truly empty. Some explorers have reported hearing faint conversations or murmurs accompanying the figures, as if echoes of long-forgotten discussions are imprinted in the air itself. Inside the roundhouse, corridors and cell blocks are frequently reported as centers of paranormal activity. Ghostly whispers are a recurring phenomenon, heard in areas where no one is present. Some visitors claim to hear the faint echo of old prisoner chants, a haunting chorus that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. These sounds often carry a sense of urgency or warning, and many who have encountered them report sudden chills or a tightening in their chest, as though the energy of the prison is physically pressing on them. The acoustics of the roundhouse, with its circular design, amplify these sounds, causing them to reverberate unnaturally through the cell. Footsteps are another hallmark of Stateville's haunted reputation. Many explorers report hearing heavy boots or shuffling feet on stone floors, sometimes following them from one corridor to another. The sounds often stop abruptly or change direction, as if the spirits are deliberately interacting with the living. Some have claimed that doors in abandoned sections open and close on their own, swinging silently or with a metallic clang that resonates through the halls. These movements are often subtle but persistent, reinforcing the impression that the prison remains occupied by unseen presences. Abandoned sections of Stateville are particularly active in terms of reported haunt. Explorers venturing into unused cell blocks have described feeling cold spots that appear suddenly, a temperature drop so sharp it causes visible breath in the air. Shadows appear in corners, sometimes moving independently of light sources, while some report feeling invisible hands brushing against their shoulders or backs. The sense of being observed is often strongest in these areas, suggesting that the energy of former inmates lingers most densely where life and death were closely entwined. The prison yard, though open to the sky, is not exempt from these eerie encounters. Some visitors report hearing distant voices echoing across the grounds, carrying phrases or fragments of conversations from long ago. Chains dragging along stone or concrete, the sound of distant metal gates opening and closing, and the occasional glimpse of a figure walking the periphery of the yard contribute to the pervasive feeling of unrest. Even the administrative areas have not escaped these reports, with accounts of shadowy forms moving silently through offices, appearing at windows, or vanishing into walls without explanation. Stateville's long history of violence and harsh conditions likely contributes to its haunted reputation. Over the decades, countless inmates experienced brutal punishments, solitary confinement, and sometimes fatal incidents. Guards faced constant tension, managing a population that could erupt into chaos at any moment. These intense emotions, fear, despair, anger, and sorrow, may have left imprints within the walls and floors of the facility, creating conditions ripe for the paranormal experiences reported today. Paranormal investigators have documented anomalies throughout the prison using cameras, audio recorders, and thermal imaging equipment. Reports include glowing orbs drifting through corridors, unexplained cold spots, and fleeting figures captured on video that appear and disappear without physical cause. While skeptics suggest that structural quirks or natural acoustics could explain some occurrences, many who have spent time inside Stateville insist that the presence of something beyond the physical is undeniable. The energy of the prison, they say, is almost palpable, a reminder of the countless lives that once revolved within its walls. For those daring enough to explore Stateville Correctional Center, the experience is more than a glimpse into a bygone era of incarceration. It is a direct encounter with the remnants of human emotion and energy left behind. Shadowy figures, whispering voices, footsteps, and cold spots create an environment where the past and present collide. Visitors leave with stories that linger, a reminder that history is not confined to written records but can manifest in the very spaces where it occurred. Pontiac Correctional Center in Pontiac, Illinois, stands as one of the state's most formidable maximum security prisons. Its towering walls and stark, utilitarian design, a constant reminder of the strict discipline and harsh conditions inside. Since its opening in 1871, the prison has housed some of the state's most dangerous offenders, earning a reputation not only for its rigorous security measures but also for the tragic and violent history that has unfolded within its confines. Over the decades, this history has contributed to countless stories of paranormal activity, making Pontiac Correctional Center a site of interest for ghost hunters, urban explorers, and those fascinated by the eerie echoes of human suffering. Reports of paranormal phenomena at Pontiac often begin in the cell blocks, where the legacy of confinement and punishment remains thick in the air. Witnesses, both staff and visitors, describe shadowy figures that appear at the end of hallways or between cells, sometimes gliding silently along corridors in uniformed forms reminiscent of the prison guards of decades past. These apparitions are reported to vanish when approached, leaving only the lingering impression of eyes watching from the darkness. Many who encounter these figures describe an intense, almost physical sensation of unease, as though the prison itself is aware of their presence. Unexplained noises are another common feature in the accounts of Pontiac's haunting. Staff have reported hearing footsteps echoing in empty corridors, doors creaking open or slamming shut without cause, and the distant clatter of chains or metal objects being dragged across concrete floors. These sounds are often accompanied by sudden cold drafts, chilling the air in areas where heating systems are inactive, reinforcing the impression of unseen presences moving through the prison. In some cases, visitors describe hearing disembodied voices calling names or whispering fragments of conversation from the past, particularly near cells where violent deaths or executions occurred. Executions, in particular, have left a lasting mark on the prison's paranormal reputation. Pontiac has carried out numerous capital punishments over the years, and it is widely believed that the energy surrounding these events remains embedded within the facility. Some witnesses report seeing fleeting figures in the execution chambers, often appearing at the moment when no one else is present. These apparitions are described as somber and motionless, yet the air seems to vibrate with their presence, as though they carry the weight of lives lost and the heavy finality of justice administered within these walls. The prison yard, though exposed to the elements, is not immune to strange occurrences. Visitors at night have reported seeing shadowy figures walking along the perimeter, sometimes disappearing mid-step or vanishing into thin air. Some claim to hear distant conversations that rise and fall as though inmates and guards from decades ago are reenacting moments from their daily routines. Even the sound of doors clanging or metal gates moving is reported, often echoing unnaturally across the yard, creating a sense that the prison remains alive with unseen activity. Inside the administrative and common areas, staff and visitors have described glimpses of apparitions dressed in correctional uniforms, sometimes moving silently across offices, stairwells, or common rooms. These figures are often seen at the edge of vision and disappear when directly observed. Some claim that the presence of these spirits seems tied to the emotions experienced in life-guarded authority. Fear, aggression, and grief, leaving a heavy, almost tangible energy in the spaces they haunt. Paranormal investigators have conducted extensive studies throughout Pontiac Correctional Center, using thermal imaging cameras, digital recorders, and night vision equipment to document anomalies. Among the most frequently captured phenomena are unexplained orbs of light drifting through hallways, cold spots appearing without cause, and faint whispers recorded on audio devices where no humans were present. While some skeptics attribute these occurrences to structural acoustics or environmental factors, many who have spent time in the prison insist that the experiences defy logical explanation. The feelings of being watched, followed, or accompanied by unseen presences are consistent enough across reports to suggest something beyond mere coincidence. Abandoned or rarely used sections of Pontiac are particularly active in terms of paranormal reports. Explorers who enter the old cell blocks or storage areas describe sudden drops in temperature, moving shadows, and the sensation of being touched by invisible hands. Some report objects being displaced, chairs shifted, metal gates rattled without explanation. In these areas, the weight of the prison's history seems most tangible, as if the spirits of past inmates and staff are imprinted on the physical structure, replaying fragments of their existence for those willing to notice. Visitors often recount a sense of time distortion within the prison, with hours feeling like minutes and hallways appearing longer than they are. Many describe an almost hypnotic quality in certain corridors, where the energy of the building itself seems to slow or intensify perceptions. The cumulative effect of these experiences contributes to Pontiac's reputation as a haunted location, a place where the line between the living and the dead appears thin and permeable. For those who enter Pontiac Correctional Center, the experience is not merely an exploration of a historic prison, it is an encounter with the lingering presence of human emotion and tragedy. Shadowy figures, unexplained noises, sudden chills, and the feeling of unseen eyes observing every movement combine to create an environment charged with residual energy. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the stories that emerge from Pontiac are compelling, consistent, and deeply unsettling, offering a glimpse into the emotional imprint left by decades of confinement, violence, and death. Big Muddy River Correctional Center, located in the small town of Ena, Illinois, is an imposing structure of concrete and steel, standing resolutely over the surrounding swampy terrain. Since its establishment, the prison has gained a reputation not only for its strict security measures and higher-risk inmates, but also for a history steeped in suffering, harsh conditions, and tales of unexplained phenomena. Over the decades, the combination of isolation, human misery, and the swampy landscape has contributed to stories of paranormal activity, making Big Muddy River Correctional Center a site that intrigues ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and those drawn to the unsettling echoes of the past. Visitors and staff frequently report sudden chills that appear without warning, often in the middle of long, dimly lit corridors. These cold spots are said to be more intense in the older sections of the prison, where cell blocks have seen generations of inmates endure extreme conditions. Some describe the chill as biting and almost physical, creeping up the spine and lingering even in areas that are otherwise well heated. Many who have felt these sudden drops in temperature report an accompanying sense of being watched, as if unseen eyes track their every movement. Doors opening and closing on their own are among the most commonly reported occurrences at Big Muddy River Correctional Center. Even in areas where security is tight and automatic locks are in place, witnesses claim that cell doors, administrative office doors, and even heavy gates swing open or shut without mechanical cause. These incidents are often accompanied by faint, indistinct noises, creaks, footsteps, or whispers that seem to follow those moving through the prison. Staff members have described walking down hallways, only to hear a door close several blocks away. A sound that echoes unnaturally and then stops abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Whispers are another recurring element of the prison's paranormal reputation. In the dead of night, when the building is largely empty, visitors report hearing faint voices, sometimes calling names, other times speaking in fragmented phrases that seem to drift from cell to cell. The whispers are described as chilling yet subtle, often just below the threshold of understanding, but persistent enough to create an unmistakable sensation that the past inmates are present, replaying moments of fear, anguish, and frustration. Some have reported that the voices appear to follow them, moving from one corridor to another, always staying just out of reach. Shadowy figures are frequently reported by those exploring the older wings or administrative sections of the prison. These figures are often described as humanoid shapes, moving silently along hallways or standing near cell blocks, vanishing when directly approached. Some witnesses claim to have seen figures dressed in prison uniforms from decades past, pacing restlessly or watching through barred windows, their presence both unsettling and oddly melancholic. In certain areas, it is said that the figures react to human movement, appearing to retreat or shift when someone comes too close, as if bound to the prison by unresolved history. The prison yard, with its barbed wire fences and concrete exercise areas, is not exempt from paranormal claims. Nighttime visitors and staff have reported shadowy forms walking along the perimeter, sometimes disappearing mid-step or fading into the swampy edges beyond the fence line. Some have heard the clatter of metal gates or distant footsteps echoing across the yard, even when the space is otherwise empty. These yard incidents are often tied to the prison's history of harsh labor assignments, punishments, and the emotional toll exacted on both inmates and guards over the decades. Paranormal investigators have documented many of these phenomena using thermal imaging cameras, audio recorders, and night vision equipment. Common findings include unexplained cold spots, drifting orbs of light, and faint whispers captured on recording devices where no human presence is detected. Some investigators report feeling an oppressive energy in certain areas, describing the sensation as a mixture of fear, sadness, and angry emotions they believe may linger from the harsh realities of prison life. Skeptics sometimes attribute these experiences to environmental factors, but the consistency of the reports across multiple observers, often in different areas of the prison, suggests a more complex explanation. Abandoned or seldom used sections of Big Muddy River Correctional Center appear to be particularly active in terms of paranormal occurrences. Witnesses report sudden drops in temperature, shadows darting across walls, and objects moving inexplicably. Some explorers claim to feel unseen hands brushing against them or tugging at clothing, while others have sensed a heavy, oppressive presence lingering in corners and stairwells. These areas, often layered with decades of history and suffering, seem to hold the strongest imprint of the prison's past. Many who have spent time in Big Muddy River Correctional Center describe a feeling of time distortion. Moments can stretch or contract, corridors seem longer than they are, and the ordinary sounds of the prison footsteps, doors, distant voices take on an amplified or unnatural quality. Combined with the chilling atmosphere, the presence of apparitions, and the unexplained sounds, the prison offers an environment that blurs the line between the living and the unseen. The Big Muddy River Correctional Center is more than just a place of incarceration. It is a repository of history, human suffering, and emotional residue, where the echoes of past inmates and guards linger in hallways, cell blocks, and yards. Shadowy figures, cold drafts, moving doors, and whispers all contribute to the growing legend that this prison is haunted. Visitors and staff alike often leave with an indelible impression of being watched, of sensing lives and tragedies that never fully departed. Dixon Correctional Center, located in the heart of Dixon, Illinois, stands as one of the state's most notorious prisons, known for housing some of the most difficult and dangerous inmates. Since its opening, the facility has developed a chilling reputation not only for its strict security measures, but also for paranormal activity. Stories passed down by guards staff, and visitors suggest that the prison is more than just a place of confinement. It is a site where restless spirits linger, bound by tragedy, pain, and decades of despair. The prison's architecture, a mix of old brick, cell blocks, and modern reinforced wings, creates long, narrow hallways that echo every sound. It is within these corridors that many claim to experience the first signs of haunting. Shadows are often seen moving independently of any light source, sometimes lingering behind cell bars or darting along the walls of abandoned sections. Staff report that these apparitions appear intermittently, vanishing when approached or when lights are turned on, leaving a lingering sense of unease. The figures are often described as humanoid, their features obscured, appearing to peer through bars as if trapped between the past and present. Whispers are another frequent occurrence at Dixon Correctional Center. Visitors and staff alike report hearing faint voices in empty hallways, often repeating phrases that cannot be fully understood. These disembodied voices seem to drift from one cell block to another, sometimes growing louder as one walks toward them and fading when attention is focused directly on the source. Some witnesses have described hearing calls of distress or anger, muffled conversations, or fragments of commands once spoken by prison guards decades ago. Solitary confinement cells, in particular, are said to resonate with these sounds, acting as portals to the past, where decades of suffering still echo. Many of the prison's paranormal claims involve objects moving without explanation. Doors that should remain locked swing open, files fall from shelves, and small items are reportedly displaced after being left untouched. In solitary units, inmates and staff have reported heavy cell doors rattling on their own, or the sound of unseen footsteps pacing within the confined space. These occurrences often coincide with a sudden drop in temperature, producing a chilling atmosphere that intensifies the sensation of a presence nearby. Some claim to feel unseen hands brushing past them, as though the memories of past prisoners are reaching into the present. Shadowy figures are perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Dixon's haunted reputation. These entities are seen throughout the prison, particularly in older cell blocks and corridors no longer in regular use. They are frequently described as tall, dark silhouettes, sometimes moving with deliberate pace, at other times seeming to linger in one place, watching. Staff report that the figures often appear near locations where tragic events occurred, such as past inmate altercations or areas where deaths took place. In solitary confinement cells, apparitions have been described as crouched figures or faint outlines pacing endlessly, as if replaying the torment of confinement. Some visitors believe these figures are the spirits of inmates who died within the walls, eternally reliving moments of fear, isolation, or anger. The prison yard, though exposed to the elements, is not exempt from paranormal phenomena. After dark, some witnesses claim to see shadowy figures moving along the perimeter fences or pacing the exercise areas. Others have reported hearing chains dragging across the ground, the distant sound of metal clanging, and ghostly footsteps echoing across empty concrete. These occurrences are often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, producing an oppressive chill that makes even brief walks across the yard unnerving. Some say these phenomena are tied to the harsh labor assignments and disciplinary measures imposed on inmates over the decades, leaving residual energy in areas of high stress and suffering. Paranormal investigators who have explored Dixon Correctional Center document a variety of strange occurrences using thermal cameras, audio recorders, and motion sensors. Common findings include sudden cold spots, drifting orbs of light, unexplained sounds, and shadows that appear on video without any source. Some investigators report feeling a heavy presence, an emotional weight that seems to press on the chest or follow them through corridors, while skeptics often attribute these experiences to environmental factors. The consistency of reports across decades and multiple observers suggests a deeper, unexplained phenomenon. Solitary confinement cells, in particular, are often described as hotspots for paranormal activity. These confined spaces, designed to punish and isolate, seem to amplify the echoes of past despair. Witnesses report hearing faint cries, muffled conversations, and even the sound of doors clanging repeatedly, though no one is present. The energy in these areas is described as oppressive, almost tangible, producing a sense of urgency to leave. Some have claimed that standing too long in solitary units induces visions of past inmates, their faces distorted by fear and anguish, as if trapped forever within the prison's history. Visitors to Dixon Correctional Center often remark on the feeling of time distortion within the walls. Hallways seem to stretch farther than physically possible. Footsteps echo unnaturally, and distant sounds take on a life of their own. Shadows flit across walls, doors appear to move, and whispers seem to come from every direction. These experiences, combined with reports of apparitions, sudden cold drafts, and objects shifting without explanation, make the prison a magnet for those drawn to the paranormal. Dixon Correctional Center stands not only as a place of punishment and incarceration, but also as a repository of human suffering, fear, and unresolved history. Shadowy figures, ghostly whispers, moving objects, and sudden temperature drops all contribute to the growing legend that the prison is haunted by the souls of those who never truly left. Each corridor, cell block, and yard seems to hold remnants of the past, echoing with the anguish of inmates and the memories of harsh discipline, ensuring that Dixon Correctional Center's dark and spectral history remains vividly present. Tom's Correctional Center, located in southern Illinois, operated for decades as one of the nation's most secure supermax prisons, designed to house the state's most dangerous and disruptive inmates. Tom's was notorious for its strict isolation policies, dark cell blocks, and harsh conditions. Though the prison closed its doors in 2013, the facility's legacy has left a lingering impression, not only in the memories of those who worked or were confined there, but also in the eerie stories of paranormal activity that continue to emerge from the empty halls and deserted blocks. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike report that the atmosphere within Tom's Correctional Center remains oppressively heavy, even years after its closure. The moment one steps onto the grounds, an unshakable sense of unease seems to permeate the air. Long corridors echo unnaturally, and the silence is often broken by sounds that cannot be explained. Many claim to hear the distant cries of former inmates, the sharp clang of metal doors, or the unmistakable rhythm of footsteps pacing through the deserted blocks. These sounds often appear to follow visitors, moving with them as they explore, only to vanish when the source is sought. The solitary confinement cells, once the heart of the supermax system, are frequently cited as the epicenter of paranormal phenomena. These tiny, windowless rooms were designed to isolate prisoners completely, often for weeks at a time, and the psychological toll on inmates was severe. Now empty, these cells reportedly resonate with the echoes of the suffering that occurred within them. Witnesses describe sudden drops in temperature upon entering, a heavy feeling pressing against their chests, and whispers that seem to call their names. Some visitors report seeing faint shadowy figures crouched in the corners or pacing silently, as if replaying the endless hours of isolation and torment. Even the main hallways, constructed of cold, concrete, and steel, are said to hold the memories of the prison's harsh past. Visitors have recounted hearing phantom door slams, the echoing clatter of keys, and the distant murmur of voices that fade into silence before they can be fully understood. Shadowy figures have been seen moving along the walls or appearing at the ends of long corridors, vanishing as soon as one approaches. Some describe figures in prison uniforms, walking slowly or standing silently behind glass observation panels, watching as if trapped in time. The yard and external areas of Tom's Correctional Center are not exempt from unexplained activity. On foggy evenings, some report hearing footsteps on the empty concrete or the distant sound of chains dragging across the ground. Occasional glimpses of figures moving along the perimeter fences have been described, only to disappear when approached. The air is said to carry a weight, heavy with the lingering tension and fear that once filled the prison. Witnesses often leave these areas feeling emotionally drained, as if the energy of the past has followed them into the present. Paranormal investigators who have explored Tom's Correctional Center document a wide range of phenomena. Using thermal cameras, motion sensors, and audio recorders, they report sudden cold spots, fleeting orbs of light, and sounds of footsteps and whispers without identifiable sources. Some describe experiencing an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling of being watched, and even physical sensations like brushes against the skin or the pressure of unseen hands. These experiences are particularly intense in areas that were once used for confinement and observation, suggesting that the emotional energy of the past remains embedded in the facility's architecture. Former staff members and inmates also contribute to Tom's haunted reputation. Guards who worked in the facility recall eerie experiences in both active and abandoned sections of the prison. Some describe hearing voices in empty corridors, doors opening and closing without explanation, and lights flickering even when electrical systems were functioning normally. Inmates who were once confined in Tom's report experiences of seeing shadows move outside their cells, feeling unseen presences in the hallways, and hearing whispers at night. These accounts, when combined with the experiences of modern explorers, reinforce the prison's reputation as a place where the past refuses to remain silent. The psychological intensity of Tom's Correctional Center's supermax environment seems to have left a permanent mark. The oppressive architecture, designed for control and isolation, has inadvertently created a setting where paranormal activity is frequently reported. From the heavy air in solitary cells to the echoing hallways and the deserted yard, every part of the facility appears to carry traces of fear, anger, and despair. Witnesses describe the environment as alive with residual energy, reacting to the presence of intruders with flickering lights, sudden temperature changes, and eerie, inexplicable sounds. Visitors to Tom's often report that the prison seems to respond to their fear. Footsteps grow louder when anxiety sets in, shadows appear to move closer, and whispers increase in intensity as tension rises. Even the bravest explorers find themselves unnerved by the palpable sense of history lingering in the walls. The combination of tragic events, harsh confinement, and unresolved emotional energy makes Tom's a unique and chilling location, where the line between the living and the spirits of the past feels impossibly thin. The Pontiac Penitentiary Hospital Wing, located within the sprawling grounds of Pontiac Correctional Center, is one of the most unsettling areas of Illinois' historic prison system. While the prison itself has long been associated with tales of hauntings and unexplained phenomena, the hospital wing holds a particularly chilling reputation. For decades, inmates who fell ill or suffered injury were treated or sometimes experimented on in this section, and many of those who entered the hospital never left. Today, visitors, former staff, and paranormal investigators report that the spirits of these inmates continue to linger, their presence felt in subtle but unmistakable ways. The moment one steps into the hospital wing, there is an immediate sense of heaviness in the air. The narrow corridors and low-lit hallways, designed to keep patients under strict observation, seem to carry a lingering sorrow. The faint scent of antiseptic and medicine, long gone from modern cleaning routines, seems to hang in certain corners, creating an illusion of recent activity. Witnesses describe a sense of being watched, as though the countless souls who suffered here remain aware of anyone venturing into their territory. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves shadowy figures gliding silently through the hospital rooms. These apparitions are often seen near the old hospital beds, sometimes standing by the foot of a cot, or appearing to adjust a sheet or hold a tray that no longer exists. Some visitors report seeing the figures of men and women in faded prison uniforms, their expressions obscured, but their presence undeniably human. The figures rarely interact aggressively, but their mere appearance is enough to unsettle even the most seasoned explorers. Accompanying these visual manifestations are the sounds that seem to echo from the walls themselves. Soft moans of pain, the rustle of sheets, and the distant clatter of medical instruments are frequently reported. Some witnesses hear the muffled voices of men calling out, not in anger, but in suffering and confusion, as if replaying the final moments of their lives. The sounds are often localized, emanating from a single room or hallway, and then fading when one tries to approach, leaving a chilling emptiness behind. Phantom touches are another common experience in the hospital wing. Visitors report the feeling of a cold hand brushing their arm, a tap on the shoulder, or a pressure on their back as they move through the halls. Many describe these sensations as brief but intense, leaving them startled and acutely aware of the isolation of the building. Some paranormal investigators suggest that these touches are a form of residual energy, imprints of the emotional and physical pain suffered by inmates during their final hours. The hospital wing also appears to retain a strange responsiveness to the presence of intruders. Lights flicker without electrical cause, doors creak open or slam shut, and cold drafts follow closely behind visitors as they navigate the rooms. Some report equipment sounds like the clinking of glass vials or the distant hum of machinery, despite the facility being long abandoned. These occurrences often increase in frequency when individuals explore alone, suggesting a connection between human presence and the activity of the spirits. Former staff members who worked in the hospital section have also shared accounts that reinforce its haunted reputation. Nurses and orderlies describe hearing patients' voices long after hours, even when the wing was empty. Some reported seeing shadows moving along the hallways or observing objects like wheelchairs and stretchers seemingly shift positions without explanation. Many staff members admit to a persistent feeling of unease, describing the environment as oppressive, heavy, and almost alive with past suffering. Visitors often recount particularly vivid experiences in the surgical rooms and isolation areas of the wing. In these spaces, some have reported seeing full-bodied apparitions reenacting moments of distress or medical treatment, their movements slow and deliberate. Others describe hearing frantic whispers or pleas for help, or the unmistakable sound of someone crying in pain. The intensity of these experiences often leaves a lasting emotional impact, with witnesses reporting feelings of deep sadness, anxiety, and an acute awareness of the history embedded in the walls. Investigators equipped with cameras, audio recorders, and thermal imaging devices have documented unusual phenomena that suggest activity beyond natural explanation. Sudden cold spots, flickering orbs of light, and inexplicable shadows have all been recorded, often in locations corresponding to historical patient rooms or isolation cells. Electronic devices have also malfunctioned in the wing, with batteries draining unusually fast or recordings capturing voices and sounds not heard at the time of filming. These findings contribute to the hospital wing's reputation as a hotspot for paranormal activity within the larger prison complex. Despite the unsettling nature of these experiences, there is a sense among some visitors that the spirits in the hospital wing are not malevolent. Many encounters suggest that the apparitions are residual echoes of suffering rather than conscious entities with intent. Some witnesses report a feeling of sorrow and longing, as if the spirits are replaying their last moments or reaching out for acknowledgement and remembrance. The weight of history and human suffering seems to have left an indelible mark, making the hospital wing a repository of energy and memory. The Pontiac Penitentiary Hospital wing stands as a stark reminder of the harsh realities of prison life and the fragility of human existence. The ghostly figures, phantom touches, and unexplainable sounds that continue to manifest serve as enduring evidence of the emotional and physical toll endured by those confined within its walls. Visitors who walk its halls may encounter fleeting shadows, hear whispers of pain, or feel the chill of unseen hands. But these experiences also offer a glimpse into the lives of those who remain trapped in memory, making the hospital wing one of the most haunted and emotionally charged locations in the state of Illinois. Stateville Prison, located in Crest Hill, Illinois, is widely known for its imposing architecture, high-security design, and dark history. Among the most chilling sections of this massive facility is the hospital wing, a place where illness, injury, and death intersected in ways that left an indelible mark on both inmates and staff. While the prison as a whole has long been associated with hauntings, the hospital wing carries a reputation for particularly intense paranormal activity. Visitors and former staff report unexplained phenomena, including sudden temperature drops, shadowy figures moving through hallways, and whispers calling out names in the dead of night, giving the wing a hauntingly oppressive atmosphere that lingers to this day. From the moment one enters the hospital wing, there is an immediate sense of unease. The long, narrow corridors and sterile, yet deteriorating rooms seem to carry a weight of past suffering. Even during daylight hours, the atmosphere feels heavy and almost tangible, as though the energy of countless patients and caretakers has been absorbed by the walls themselves. Former nurses, guards, and maintenance staff all describe feeling watched, a sensation that only intensifies in the dimly lit corners and isolated treatment rooms. Some claim that the spirits of former inmates and staff are particularly aware of anyone entering their former spaces, observing silently from the shadows. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves ghostly figures gliding through the hallways. These apparitions are often described as wearing old hospital uniforms, some resembling the attire of nurses or orderlies from decades past, while others appear as inmates lying on stretchers or walking slowly through the corridors. Witnesses report seeing them near old hospital beds, sometimes standing at the foot of a cot, appearing to adjust sheets or hold medical instruments that are no longer there. Though the figures rarely interact aggressively, their presence is unmistakably human and deeply unsettling, leaving visitors with the impression that the hospital wing is still very much occupied by unseen residents. Auditory phenomena are equally striking. Many visitors have reported hearing faint moans of pain, whispers calling out names, and the subtle rustle of sheets, all occurring in areas long abandoned. In some cases, these sounds appear to come from specific rooms or even individual beds, intensifying the eerie sensation that the wing is reliving its past. Some witnesses describe hearing old prison hospital routines, such as the clinking of medical tools, soft footsteps, or hushed conversations between staff and patients, replaying like echoes from a time long gone. These auditory experiences often provoke a visceral reaction, leaving those present on edge and hyper-aware of their surroundings. Cold spots are another frequent occurrence, appearing suddenly in otherwise still and quiet rooms. Visitors have reported drops in temperature so abrupt that they can see their breath in the air, or feel chills running down their spine, despite wearing adequate clothing. These cold drafts are often accompanied by a sense of being watched or followed, suggesting a connection between the sudden environmental changes and the presence of spirits. Some paranormal investigators speculate that these cold spots are manifestations of residual energy from the intense emotions and physical suffering endured in the hospital wing over the years. Perhaps most unsettling are the phantom touches experienced by some who explore the hospital wing. Witnesses have described the sensation of cold hands brushing their arms, taps on the shoulder, or even a light pressure on their back as they walk through the hallways. These touches are brief but startling, and they often coincide with visual or auditory phenomena, reinforcing the feeling that the spirits are aware of the living moving through their space. Investigators suggest that these touches may be residual imprints of the fear, pain, and anguish experienced by inmates during their time in the wing, lingering in a way that interacts with those who enter today. Certain areas of the hospital wing are particularly prone to paranormal activity. Surgical rooms, isolation cells, and recovery areas are frequently cited as hotspots for unexplained phenomena. Visitors report seeing full-bodied apparitions reenacting moments of distress, movement of objects such as wheelchairs and beds, and the faint outline of former staff tending to patients. Some have even reported hearing cries for help or moans of pain emanating from empty isolation cells, echoing through the halls with an eerie realism. These experiences often leave a lasting emotional impact, heightening the sense of dread and reinforcing the wing's haunted reputation. Investigators armed with cameras, audio recorders, and thermal imaging devices have captured unusual phenomena in the hospital wing. Unexplained orbs of light, fleeting shadows, and sudden drops in temperature have all been recorded, often in locations with historical significance. Electronic devices frequently malfunction during investigations, with batteries draining rapidly or recorders capturing voices not heard at the time. These documented anomalies lend credibility to the reports of supernatural activity and suggest that the hospital wing is a focal point for lingering spiritual energy within Stateville Prison. Despite the intensity of these experiences, there is a sense among some visitors that the spirits are not malicious. The apparitions, whispers, and cold touches appear to be residual echoes of past suffering rather than conscious, malevolent entities. Many describe a feeling of sorrow and longing, as though the spirits are reliving moments of fear, illness, and isolation, or seeking acknowledgement for the hardships they endured. The environment of the hospital wing seems to act as a repository of memory, preserving the intense emotions of the past in a tangible form that continues to affect those who enter. The Stateville Prison Hospital Wing remains one of the most compellingly haunted locations in Illinois. The shadowy figures, unexplained sounds, sudden cold drafts, and phantom touches provide a chilling glimpse into the lives of those who endured pain and suffering within its walls. Visitors and investigators alike often leave with a profound sense of the weight of history, aware that the spirits of inmates and staff have left a permanent imprint on the building. The hospital wing serves as both a testament to the harsh realities of prison life and a haunting reminder that some places never forget the lives and the suffering contained within them. Menard Correctional Center in Chester, Illinois, is widely known for its long history of housing some of the state's most dangerous inmates. While the prison as a whole has a reputation for harsh conditions, it is the solitary confinement wing that draws the most attention from paranormal investigators and thrill-seekers alike. Often referred to simply as the solitary wing, this section of Menard is considered the epicenter of ghostly activity within the prison. Visitors and staff alike report experiences that go beyond the ordinary. From shadowy figures pacing behind cell doors to whispers echoing through empty corridors, many who enter describe an oppressive, almost tangible sense of being watched, an energy that weighs heavily on the mind and body. Walking into the solitary wing, the air immediately feels different. The narrow hallways, lined with rows of small, claustrophobic cells, amplify every sound, making footsteps and distant echoes unnervingly clear. The faint smell of disinfectant and old stone mixes with the atmosphere of confinement, creating an environment that is both physical and psychological. Even during the day, the wing seems heavy, the walls pressing in as though they remembered the countless hours of isolation endured by inmates over decades. It is in this charged environment that many of the reported paranormal experiences occur. One of the most commonly described phenomena in the solitary wing is the presence of shadowy figures. These apparitions are often seen pacing slowly in the narrow corridors or standing at the foot of empty cells. Some witnesses report seeing figures in full prison attire, while others describe darker, more indistinct shapes that seem almost to melt into the corners of the hallway. The movements are deliberate, often repetitive, as if the spirits are reenacting moments from the past. For those who encounter them, the experience can be profoundly unsettling, as the figures appear aware of observers yet vanish when approached, leaving only an echo of their presence behind. Auditory phenomena are just as unsettling. Many visitors and staff report hearing whispers that seem to come from within the cells themselves, often calling names or speaking in fragmented sentences. The voices are faint but distinct, carried on the otherwise still air of the wing. Some investigators have recorded these sounds, capturing disembodied voices that cannot be attributed to any living person. In addition to whispers, the wing is known for phantom footsteps that echo in the empty hallways, the clatter of objects that appear to move on their own, and the occasional slam of a door with no visible cause. These sounds often intensify at night or during times when the wing is otherwise deserted, amplifying the sense that the space itself is alive with memory. Temperature anomalies are another frequent occurrence in the solitary wing. Visitors have reported sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that seem to cling to specific cells or areas of the corridor. Some describe these chills as bone deep, leaving them shivering despite proper clothing. Paranormal investigators often interpret these cold spots as evidence of spiritual energy, the residual imprint of emotional and physical suffering experienced by inmates who spent long hours confined in isolation. These environmental changes often coincide with other phenomena, such as ghostly whispers or fleeting shadows, reinforcing the impression that the wing is more than simply a physical space. Objects moving inexplicably are also a hallmark of the solitary wing's haunting. Witnesses report seeing doors that swing open or shut with no discernible cause, papers or small personal items shifting across tables or floors, and even keys or other small objects disappearing only to reappear elsewhere. These incidents contribute to the sense that the wing is under the influence of unseen forces, a place where the line between the physical and supernatural blurs. For those who explore the wing, these unexplained movements are particularly unnerving, as they occur in spaces designed to isolate and confine, intensifying the feeling of vulnerability. Certain cells in the solitary wing are particularly infamous for paranormal activity. Observers often report that some rooms feel heavier than others, a sensation accompanied by sudden chills, whispers, or visual anomalies. In these cells, shadowy figures may appear lingering near the bed or pacing silently along the walls. Some witnesses have described fleeting images of former inmates, their expressions etched with despair, as if replaying moments of emotional and physical suffering that occurred decades ago. These hotspots are frequently the focus of paranormal investigations, as they seem to hold a concentrated amount of residual energy tied to the prison's history of incarceration and punishment. Despite the intensity of these experiences, many who explore the solitary wing report a sense that the spirits are not overtly hostile. The apparitions, whispers, and sudden environmental changes appear to be residual echoes of past events rather than active attempts to harm the living. Many visitors describe feeling a mixture of sorrow, tension, and curiosity, as if the wing itself is a repository of memory, preserving the hardships endured by those confined there. It is this interplay between fear, history, and human suffering that makes the Menard solitary wing uniquely haunting. Paranormal investigators have documented numerous incidents within the wing, capturing images of fleeting shadows, unusual light anomalies, and unexplained sounds on audio recordings. These documented events provide a glimpse into the intensity of the haunting, reinforcing the anecdotal reports of staff and visitors. Electronic devices often malfunction in the wing, batteries draining rapidly or cameras freezing, adding another layer of mystery to the already eerie environment. Joliet Correctional Center, with its imposing Gothic architecture and long, dark history, holds many stories of suffering and confinement, but perhaps none are more chilling than those surrounding its death row block. This section of the prison has seen countless inmates face their final moments, and over the decades, it has become synonymous not only with legal finality, but with the echoes of despair that linger long after the last executions. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike report experiences that suggest the very walls of death row carry the imprints of those who once walked its halls. A place where fear, anticipation, and mortality fused into something that refuses to dissipate. Walking into the death row block, one is immediately struck by the oppressive atmosphere. Narrow corridors stretch into darkness, lined with rows of small, iron-barred cells. The air is heavy, carrying the faint scent of old stone, rust, and decades of human anguish. Every step taken on the worn concrete floors seems amplified, the sound echoing through the hallways in ways that feel unnatural. Even in daylight, the corridor feels cold and foreboding, a stark reminder of the countless souls who have paced these halls, many knowing they would never leave. Those who venture here report a sensation of being watched, an unseen presence pressing close, as though the past refuses to be ignored. One of the most frequently reported phenomena on death row is the presence of shadowy figures. These apparitions are often glimpsed pacing behind cell doors or standing at the foot of the narrow corridors. Some witnesses describe them as faint, indistinct shapes, while others see forms clearly dressed in prison garb. Their movements are deliberate, repetitive, almost ritualistic, as if replaying moments from the past. When approached, the figures vanish, leaving only the echo of their presence. For many, these sightings provoke an unsettling mixture of curiosity and fear, a sense that the spirits are aware of the living but remain trapped in their own world. Auditory phenomena in the death row block are equally chilling. Visitors report hearing whispers and fragments of conversation, often resembling last words, murmured confessions, or cries of desperation. These voices seem to come from the cells themselves, carried along the hallway with an unnatural clarity. Even more disturbing are the reports of phantom chains rattling inside empty cells, as though the instruments of confinement themselves remember the anguish of those who wore them. Doors have been known to slam shut with no physical cause, and footsteps echo in the empty corridors, sometimes approaching and retreating without pattern. These sounds combine to create an environment where reality feels fragile, and the line between the living and the dead is blurred. Temperature anomalies are a hallmark of the death row haunting. Witnesses often report sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that cling to specific cells or corners of the hallway. Some describe these chills as bone deep, leaving them shivering despite appropriate clothing. Paranormal researchers interpret these cold spots as manifestations of spiritual energy, a lingering trace of fear, despair, and finality. Often, these temperature drops are accompanied by other phenomena, such as whispers, shadows, or the sensation of being touched by unseen hands, reinforcing the impression that death row itself is imbued with the residual presence of past inmates. Another unsettling aspect of the haunting involves objects moving inexplicably. Keys, small personal items, and even pieces of furniture have been reported shifting without cause. Witnesses describe seeing cell doors open or close on their own, sometimes swinging violently, as though echoing the tension and resistance of the past. These movements contribute to the perception that death row is not just haunted, but actively aware, responding to the presence of visitors in ways that are both subtle and unnerving. Certain cells are particularly notorious for paranormal activity. Some appear heavier, more oppressive, and seem to attract a concentration of unexplained events. Shadowy figures are often seen within these cells, pacing or lingering near beds and walls. Whispers and murmurs seem louder, and cold spots more pronounced. Witnesses have described fleeting images of former inmates sitting on beds, staring blankly at the floor, their expressions etched with despair, capturing a moment frozen in time. These hotspots are the focus of many paranormal investigations, as they appear to preserve the intense emotional and psychological residue of life and death moments. The cumulative effect of these phenomena is a palpable sense of oppression that many describe as almost tangible. Walking through the death row block, visitors often feel a heavy weight on their shoulders, a deep unease that is difficult to shake. The apparitions, sounds, and temperature anomalies create an atmosphere where one cannot help but sense the lingering presence of those who endured the terror and isolation of impending death. It is as though the wing itself is a repository of fear and sorrow, holding on to the essence of the countless inmates who walked its corridors in despair. Paranormal investigators have documented numerous occurrences, capturing images of fleeting shadows, unusual light anomalies, and disembodied voices on audio recordings. Electronic devices frequently malfunction in the block, with batteries draining quickly or cameras freezing unexpectedly, adding another layer of mystery to the already intense environment. For those who experience it firsthand, the death row block is not merely haunted, it is a living echo of mortality, a space where the emotional energy of the past continues to resonate. The isolation cells at Dixon Correctional Center are among the most unsettling areas of the prison, a place where despair seems to have been concentrated over decades. Built to house the most dangerous or unmanageable inmates, these cells were designed for complete separation, cutting prisoners off from all contact, often for extended periods. While the physical isolation was strict, the psychological toll left a lingering presence that many now claim refuses to rest. Visitors and paranormal investigators report experiences that suggest the cells have absorbed the pain and suffering of those who endured their confinement, creating an atmosphere that is deeply unnerving and, for some, terrifying. Upon entering the isolation wing, the atmosphere changes immediately. The air feels heavier, colder, and more oppressive than elsewhere in the prison. Narrow hallways, lined with rows of concrete cells, stretch into shadows that seem to shift and lengthen as you move. The faint scent of mildew, old stone, and decades of human suffering clings to the air. Even in daylight, the wing feels stifling, as though the walls themselves are pressing inward. Witnesses describe a tangible weight on their shoulders, a sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. It is this immediate feeling of oppression that makes the isolation cells of Dixon uniquely haunting. The most commonly reported phenomena involve sound. Low moans, groans, and anguished cries are often heard echoing from the empty cells. Some visitors have reported hearing a prisoner weeping, pacing, or even whispering incoherently. Though the cells have been empty for years, the voices seem to come from within the walls themselves, reverberating down the narrow corridors and creating the impression that the inmates who suffered here are eternally reliving their torment. Paranormal investigators have recorded disembodied sounds on audio devices, capturing faint, sorrowful murmurs that cannot be explained by environmental factors or human presence. Visual phenomena are equally unsettling. Shadows are frequently reported moving along the walls and floors of the isolation wing, appearing to dart just out of the corner of one's eye, only to vanish when directly observed. Some witnesses have described full-bodied apparitions standing in the doorways or leaning against the cell bars, appearing as faint silhouettes dressed in prison garb. The figures are often motionless, yet their presence is undeniable, instilling a deep sense of unease. When approached, these apparitions dissipate, leaving behind a lingering chill and the echo of invisible footsteps. Temperature anomalies are another hallmark of the isolation cells. Sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that cling to certain corners or cells, and a general sense of icy air have been reported by visitors and investigators alike. These cold zones often coincide with other phenomena, such as whispers or moving shadows, suggesting a connection between the energy of the space and the residual presence of past inmates. Witnesses describe the chill as penetrating, seeping into the bones, and reinforcing the feeling that the wing itself has absorbed the despair of those who suffered within. The movement of objects, although less frequent, has also been reported. Doors that were securely closed have been seen swinging open or shut without explanation. Personal items left behind, such as a notebook or pen, have been discovered moved from one cell to another. These occurrences contribute to the sense that the isolation cells are not merely haunted but responsive, as though the spirits within are aware of the living presence and are interacting in subtle, unnerving ways. Certain cells have gained notoriety for heightened activity. These are often the smallest or most historically restrictive units, where prisoners endured the harshest conditions. Witnesses have reported seeing shadows pacing the floor, whispering directly into the hallway, or even crouched on the bunks as if trapped in some eternal vigil. Paranormal teams often focus on these areas, noting that electronic devices sometimes malfunction or record unusual anomalies that cannot be explained by mechanical or environmental factors. The cumulative effect of these experiences is a profound psychological weight. Many who visit the Dixon isolation cells report a sense of being watched, followed, or even touched by unseen hands. The oppressive atmosphere, combined with auditory and visual phenomena, creates an environment where fear and fascination intermingle. For those unprepared, the experience can be overwhelming, leaving a lasting impression of the lingering despair contained within these walls. Despite the haunting nature of the isolation cells, some visitors and investigators are drawn to the space out of curiosity and a desire to understand the lingering presence of the past. The cells serve as a stark reminder of the human capacity for suffering and the psychological scars that confinement can leave behind. While some approach with skepticism, the repeated reports of inexplicable phenomena, from whispering voices to moving shadows and sudden colds, suggest that Dixon's isolation wing is a place where history and the supernatural intersect in tangible ways. The maximum security wing of Big Muddy Correctional Center in Ena has long been the focus of ghost stories and chilling reports, earning a reputation as one of the most haunted sections of the prison. built to house the most dangerous and unmanageable inmates. The wing's design emphasizes strict control, with reinforced cells, narrow corridors, and high-security monitoring. Yet, despite the precautions and modern infrastructure, the atmosphere inside has been described as oppressive, heavy with the lingering energy of those who lived and suffered within its walls. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike have reported unsettling phenomena that suggest the presence of restless spirits, leaving many to wonder if the maximum security wing is haunted not by the living, but by the echoes of the past. From the moment one steps into the wing, the sense of foreboding is immediate. The hallways are long and dimly lit, shadows clinging to corners and walls. The air carries a cold weight, as if the building itself retains the tension and fear of decades of confinement. Some visitors have described the sensation of being watched, even when alone. A prickling awareness that unseen eyes are tracking every move. The effect is almost tangible. It presses on the skin, seeps into the mind, and amplifies the fear inherent in walking through such a place. Auditory phenomena are among the most frequently reported. Disembodied footsteps echo down empty corridors, sometimes following visitors, only to vanish abruptly. The sound is often precise, matching the rhythm of a walking person, yet no one is there. Some witnesses claim to hear ghostly pacing within cells, soft murmurs, or the clink of metal, perhaps shackles or keys, though the wing has been empty for hours. Others have reported low moans and anguished whispers drifting through the air, as if prisoners trapped in the past are still reliving their confinement. Paranormal investigators equipped with audio recorders have captured strange sounds on multiple occasions, faint footsteps, murmured voices, and even intermittent knocks that seem to respond to human presence. Visual phenomena have been equally disturbing. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed in peripheral vision, pacing the halls or standing silently in doorways. These apparitions usually disappear when directly observed, leaving only a lingering chill in their wake. Some witnesses have described seeing full-bodied silhouettes in the act of walking, leaning against bars, or even gesturing toward the corridor. The figures are typically dark, indistinct, and shrouded in an aura of tension, yet their presence is unmistakable, instilling a deep unease in anyone who encounters them. Temperature fluctuations and sudden drafts are other common reports. Cold spots appear without warning, sometimes following visitors as they move from cell to cell. The air can drop several degrees in an instant, creating goosebumps and a sense of foreboding. These chills often coincide with other paranormal activity, such as whispers, footsteps, or shadow movement, reinforcing the idea that the wing is somehow responsive to human presence. Visitors have described the cold as penetrating and unnatural, a sensation that seems to linger long after leaving the wing. Even objects sometimes behave inexplicably. Cell doors that were firmly closed have been found slightly ajar, while small items left on benches or windowsills have been reported as moved or knocked over. These occurrences, though subtle, contribute to the overall sense that the maximum security wing is alive with the residual energy of those who once suffered there. Many investigators believe that these interactions are manifestations of the intense psychological and emotional stress that once filled these cells, now left behind as a haunting imprint. Certain areas of the wing are considered hotspots for paranormal activity. Cells that historically held the most difficult or violent inmates tend to have heightened reports of sightings and sounds. In these locations, visitors frequently report shadows pacing within the cells, whispers calling out from the darkness, and sudden drops in temperature that make the hair stand on end. Paranormal teams often focus on these cells, observing that electronic devices sometimes malfunction. Cameras capture unexplained anomalies, and recordings pick up sounds that cannot be attributed to any living presence. The cumulative effect of these experiences creates an atmosphere of intense psychological pressure. Visitors often describe feelings of unease, dread, or even fear that seems to seep into their very bones. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena leaves little doubt for many that the maximum security wing is not just haunted in legend but continues to hold the presence of those who endured its harsh conditions. It is a haunting that is not violent or aggressive, but instead profoundly somber reflection of the despair, fear, and isolation that characterize life inside. Despite the unsettling nature of the wing, some are drawn to it out of curiosity or a desire to study its phenomena. Paranormal investigators, historians, and thrill seekers have all ventured into the corridors, documenting their experiences and often leaving with a deeper understanding of the weight of confinement. The wing serves as a chilling reminder of the psychological impact of extreme isolation and the human capacity for suffering. Yet, it also stands as a stark testament to the lingering presence of those who lived and died within its walls. The administrative wing of Tom's Correctional Center in Toms, Illinois, holds a haunting reputation that extends beyond the cells and exercise yards, though these offices were never intended to house inmates for long periods. The wing has long been associated with unexplained phenomena, strange occurrences, and eerie sensations that have left visitors and former staff unnerved. For many who venture inside, the building feels alive with the lingering presence of those who spent decades working or being processed within its walls. Paranormal investigators, curious explorers, and former employees alike have all reported events that defy logical explanation, suggesting that the administrative wing carries with it the residual energy of the prison's dark past. From the moment someone enters the administrative section, an unusual sense of heaviness and tension seems to fill the air. The hallways are narrow, lined with offices, and dimly lit, even during the day. Light fixtures sometimes flicker without warning, casting shadows that twist and stretch across walls. Many visitors have reported sudden blackouts in certain areas, as if the energy in the room drains the very electricity from the building. In some instances, fluorescent lights hum with an unusual intensity before dimming, leaving the corridor in a semi-darkness that amplifies the feeling of being watched. The flickering lights are often accompanied by other phenomena, creating a layered sense of unease that is difficult to shake. Auditory experiences are among the most frequently reported. Whispers echo through empty hallways, sounding as though multiple conversations are occurring at once. Investigators have described hearing low murmurs that seem to respond to questions or follow them as they move from office to office. In some cases, the whispers are more distinct, forming partial words or even full sentences, though the source remains elusive. Doors, both office and exterior, open and close without anyone touching them. Some reports indicate that a door will swing slowly open as a person approaches, only to slam shut suddenly, leaving the witness startled and unsure of what they saw. The sound of footsteps echoing across the linoleum floors, even when no one else is present, is also commonly reported. These footsteps often match the rhythm of a human walking, accelerating, or pausing as if aware of someone nearby. Visual phenomena have been described less frequently, but with equal intensity. Shadowy figures are sometimes glimpsed out of the corner of the eye, moving between offices or disappearing into walls. Some visitors have reported seeing the faint outline of a person seated at a desk, only for the figure to vanish when looked at directly. Lights reflecting off metal fixtures or glass panels occasionally create shapes that seem humanoid, leading to fleeting glimpses of apparitions. In more dramatic accounts, investigators claim to have seen shapes moving deliberately toward them before dissolving into thin air, leaving only a cold, empty space behind. Temperature fluctuations are another hallmark of the administrative wing. Certain areas, particularly near old office desks or filing rooms, are often noticeably colder than surrounding spaces. The drops are sudden and pronounced, leaving goosebumps on exposed skin and causing breath to become visible in mid-air. Even on days when the rest of the building is warm, these chills are frequently accompanied by the other reported phenomena: flickering lights, whispers, and moving shadows, creating a multisensory experience that is difficult to ignore. Objects behaving inexplicably add to the eerie reputation of the wing. Office chairs have been found turned or slightly moved after employees left the room. Filing cabinets sometimes appear ajar, with papers shifted as if someone has rifled through them. Pens, notepads, and small office equipment have been reported to disappear temporarily. only to reappear in different locations. Investigators often attribute these occurrences to the lingering energy of the people who once worked or were processed in the offices. But the consistency and frequency of such events suggests something more. The administrative wing is particularly notable for its subtle, psychological impact on visitors. Many describe an immediate sense of tension or unease upon entering, as though the building itself anticipates and reacts to human presence. Some staff who worked in the wing reported feelings of dread, fatigue, or being observed even when alone. Paranormal teams often note that the energy seems to concentrate in certain offices, particularly those that historically saw high levels of inmate processing or disciplinary activity. In these locations, the combination of whispers, cold spots, and unexplained movements is particularly intense. Even after the closure of Tom's Correctional Center in 2013, the administrative wing continues to draw attention. Paranormal investigators document occurrences with cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic sensors, frequently capturing unexplained phenomena. Flickering lights, faint voices, and shadowy movements appear on recordings, reinforcing eyewitness accounts. Visitors consistently report that the wing feels alive with residual energy, a haunting testament to decades of work, control, and the stress of managing the complex relationships between staff and inmates. The haunting of Tom's administrative wing is not overtly violent, but it carries an oppressive weight that many find unsettling. The combination of unexplained sounds, moving objects, flickering lights, and shadowy figures suggests a presence tied not to a single spirit, but to the accumulated energy of everyone who spent time within its walls. It is an eerie reminder that places of confinement, authority, and trauma often retain echoes of the past, leaving imprints that can manifest long after the doors have closed. The Rotunda of Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois, is an architectural marvel, yet it holds a dark reputation that overshadows its circular design. Constructed in the early 20th century as part of the prison's unique roundhouse layout, the rotunda was intended to allow guards to observe multiple cell blocks from a central vantage point. But over the decades, it has become infamous for the paranormal activity reported by staff, visitors, and paranormal investigators alike. Those who enter the rotunda often speak of an unsettling presence, as if the very air is saturated with echoes of the countless prisoners who passed through, some of whom met violent or tragic ends within its walls. From the moment one steps into the rotunda, an almost tangible heaviness fills the space. The high arched ceiling amplifies every sound, from the slightest footstep to a distant echo of movement in the upper tiers. Many visitors describe the sensation of being watched, a feeling that grows stronger as they walk the circular floor, following the path that countless prisoners once traced on their way to cells, punishments, or death. The acoustics, designed for surveillance, now seem to carry voices that are not present, whispers of names, arguments, and occasional laughter, faint yet persistent, weaving through the dome in ways that defy explanation. Visual phenomena are reported frequently. Peripheral vision often captures flickering shadows darting across the walls, only to vanish when directly observed. Some have claimed to see figures pacing in circles, mimicking the footsteps of guards or prisoners, their forms translucent but detailed enough to reveal uniforms or prison garb. A common report is the apparition of a prisoner standing motionless in the center of the rotunda, sometimes turning to follow a visitor with hollow, unreadable eyes before disappearing. The round structure seems to intensify these sightings, giving the impression that the ghosts are moving in endless loops, replaying events from decades past. Auditory experiences are among the most chilling. Witnesses frequently hear footsteps echoing on the circular floor, pacing in rhythm with their own movements or in a sequence that suggests multiple presences. These sounds often appear in the upper galleries, where no one is physically present, and footsteps can circle the rotunda endlessly, vanishing abruptly when one tries to track their origin. Whispered conversations sometimes carry across the dome, forming fragmented phrases like "don't look, they're coming," or the names of prisoners long deceased. Visitors report that even when speaking aloud, their voices are absorbed by the rotunda, returning distorted or joined by other voices that do not belong to anyone present. Light and shadow play a central role in the rotunda's haunted reputation. Flickering lights, often without any electrical cause, create moving shadows that stretch across the circular floor, giving the impression of dozens of figures moving in the corners of the eye. On occasion, entire shapes are said to appear, ghostly men or women moving with deliberate intent, their presence accompanied by a drop in temperature and a sudden, unexplained stillness of the air. Some visitors describe feeling a cold hand brush past their shoulder, a fleeting touch that vanishes as soon as it is acknowledged. Others have reported the sudden movement of small objects, keys, papers, or old furniture, without any visible force. Temperature anomalies are another hallmark of the rotunda. Cold spots appear in random locations, sometimes following a person as they move through the space. These chills are intense enough to create visible breath, even on warm days, and often accompany other phenomena: whispers, shadows, or sudden movements. Investigators have noted that these temperature drops are localized, as if specific areas of the rotunda harbor concentrated energy from the past. In certain corners, or along particular walkways, the feeling of oppression grows, making even experienced visitors uneasy. The rotunda's history amplifies its eerie atmosphere. For over a century, prisoners were held, punished, and occasionally executed within the larger complex. Many violent deaths, riots, and assaults took place near or visible from the rotunda. Staff who worked in proximity to the space have reported hearing arguments or cries when the building is empty, seeing doors move or slam with no cause, and occasionally witnessing apparitions resembling guards or prisoners who no longer exist. Paranormal teams often document these events, capturing shadowy forms, orbs, and temperature fluctuations with sensors and cameras, supporting eyewitness accounts with tangible, though unexplained, evidence. Psychologically, the rotunda seems to magnify fear and anxiety. Visitors often report a sense of dizziness or disorientation, as the circular layout disorients the mind and amplifies the echoes of footsteps, whispers, and creaking structures. The more time spent inside, the heavier the oppressive sensation becomes, as though the collective energy of decades of suffering, fear, and control weighs on anyone present. Some reports hearing voices reacting to their movements, footsteps matching their own rhythm, or whispers responding to questions with an eerie intelligence. Even after sections of the prison have been closed or repurposed, the rotunda remains a hotspot for paranormal interest. Investigators consistently capture audio anomalies, unexplained movements, and visual phenomena that suggest the space is far from empty. Witnesses often leave with a profound impression that the rotunda is a nexus of residual energy, a place where the collective history of human suffering and confinement continues to echo. The Pontiac Correctional Center in Pontiac, Illinois, has long been known for its high-security operations, but it is another, quieter part of the prison that has drawn attention from those interested in the paranormal. The exercise yard, once a bustling place where inmates stretched their legs and released their frustrations under the watchful eyes of guards. The yard is now largely abandoned, yet, despite its empty appearance, visitors and investigators alike report that the space is far from lifeless after dark. Shadowy figures, mysterious sounds, and fleeting apparitions have created a reputation that makes the Pontiac exercise yard one of the most unnerving parts of the prison. From the first step into the yard, there is a noticeable shift in atmosphere. The open space seems deceptively calm, bordered by tall walls and barred gates that once confined hundreds of men. Many who visit at night immediately feel an unexplainable presence, as if invisible eyes are watching from every corner. This sensation is often accompanied by subtle noises, the faint scuffing of footsteps on concrete, whispers that appear to come from nowhere, and distant laughter that echoes eerily across the expanse. These sounds are sometimes so clear that they seem to belong to real people, only to vanish the moment anyone attempts to locate their source. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of ghostly figures jogging along the yard. Witnesses describe these shapes as semi-transparent, often resembling inmates in period-appropriate uniforms, moving with a deliberate, rhythmic motion that mirrors the routines of the prison's past. Some figures are seen alone, while others appear in small groups, as if participating in an evening exercise session that never ended. Observers often note that the figures vanish abruptly, dissolving into thin air when approached or illuminated by flashlights. This sudden disappearance contributes to the unnerving atmosphere, making the yard feel alive with unseen forces that observe but do not interact directly. Footsteps, separate from the jogging apparitions, are another common report. These sounds vary from slow, measured pacing to hurried, almost frantic running, echoing across the concrete surface. Many visitors recount moments when the footsteps seem to follow them, mirroring their pace or circling around them before abruptly ceasing. In some cases, the sound of running feet appears in areas where no one could possibly be, creating a disorienting effect that amplifies the sense of dread. Paranormal investigators have noted that these sounds sometimes coincide with temperature drops, adding a physical chill to the auditory experience. Laughter is an especially eerie element of the yard's haunting. Low, muffled, and often intermittent, the sound of distant laughter carries across the open space in ways that defy explanation. Some witnesses describe it as playful, almost mocking, while others perceive it as sorrowful or sinister. The laughter often comes in bursts, followed by silence so complete that even the natural night sounds of the surrounding area seem muted. This auditory phenomenon, paired with the fleeting shadows and apparitions, gives the impression that the yard is replaying echoes of the prison's past, capturing the energy and emotion of inmates long gone. In addition to sounds and apparitions, visual anomalies are reported regularly. Shadows seem to move independently of light sources, and peripheral glimpses often reveal figures that vanish when directly looked at. Some witnesses describe seeing translucent forms standing near the perimeter fences, their postures and movements consistent with guards or supervisors from decades past. Others claim to see small groups of figures engaged in activities typical of a prison exercise period, jogging, stretching, or simply standing in conversation. Occasionally, these forms appear to interact with the environment, momentarily shifting objects or leaving faint impressions on the concrete, though no one is present to explain these disturbances. Temperature fluctuations are another hallmark of the yard's paranormal activity. Chills descend suddenly in specific areas, often in the path of moving apparitions or along the outer edges of the yard. These cold spots are not subtle. They are intense enough to be felt by anyone standing or walking through them, and they often accompany other phenomena such as ghostly footsteps or sudden gusts of wind that move through the yard despite the stillness of the night. Many visitors report a sensation of being watched during these cold spells, reinforcing the sense that the yard is alive with unseen eyes. Psychologically, the Pontiac exercise yard seems to amplify feelings of isolation and vulnerability. The combination of open space, high walls, and echoes of past activity creates an unsettling environment. Witnesses often report that the yard feels larger at night than it actually is, as shadows and sounds distort perceptions of distance and direction. The repetitive nature of the jogging apparitions and footsteps can create a sense of being trapped in a loop, where time and movement are warped by the presence of those who came before. Paranormal investigations have documented numerous anomalies in the yard. Audio recordings capture footsteps and laughter with no identifiable source, while infrared cameras sometimes show moving shapes that cannot be explained by natural movement. Investigators also report sudden spikes in electromagnetic readings, particularly in areas where apparitions are most frequently observed. These findings, combined with eyewitness accounts, suggest that the Pontiac exercise yard continues to be a focal point for lingering energies, where past routines, frustrations, and lives converge into a spectral replay. Despite its abandonment, the yard continues to attract visitors, drawn by its haunted reputation. Some approach with caution, recording devices, and flashlights, hoping to capture evidence of the unexplained. Others come simply to experience the unsettling atmosphere, walking the circular paths while feeling the presence of invisible joggers at their side. The combination of visual apparitions, ghostly footsteps, inexplicable laughter, and sudden chills ensures that no visit is ever truly ordinary. Cell Block 1 at the Joliet Correctional Center has long been regarded as one of the most haunted areas of the sprawling Gothic-style prison. Built in the mid-19th century, the structure was home to countless inmates over its many decades of operation. Its narrow corridors, high ceilings, and heavy iron-barred cells created an atmosphere of confinement and despair that has never fully lifted. Today, even years after the prison's closure, visitors and paranormal investigators alike describe experiences in Cell Block 1 that are unsettling, chilling, and at times inexplicably supernatural. From the moment one steps into the block, the environment feels different. The air carries a weight, a dense presence that is immediately perceptible. Some visitors report a subtle drop in temperature, a coldness that seeps into the bones, lingering even when the outer doors are open. The long hallways, lined with cell doors that have not swung open in decades, echo with sounds that seem impossibly out of place. Footsteps echo where no one walks, and the faint, metallic clatter of keys or chains seems to come from empty cells. The effect is cumulative, a slow but steady tension that causes even experienced investigators to feel watched and unnerved. One of the most frequent reports from visitors involves shadowy figures appearing in the windows of Cell Block 1. These silhouettes are often described as tall, formless, and dark, sometimes standing motionless behind the iron bars, sometimes pacing back and forth in a repetitive, unnatural rhythm. Witnesses often notice these shapes from the far end of the hall, only to find them gone when they approach. Some have reported seeing figures leaning against the cell doors as if observing, while others have described apparitions crouched or sitting on the cell floors, staring silently into the darkness. The presence of these shadows is often accompanied by an overwhelming feeling of being watched, a psychological pressure that seems to follow each step through the block. Doors slamming without any physical cause is another hallmark of Cell Block 1. Investigators have recounted moments when heavy cell doors or even larger corridor doors swing open or closed with a force that seems unnatural. Sometimes the sound is isolated, a single cell door banging shut, while other times multiple doors slam in succession, echoing down the hall in a terrifying crescendo. These incidents often occur during periods of intense investigation or recording, suggesting a responsiveness to human presence. In some cases, witnesses have described hearing the slamming follow them, a series of noises that mirrors their movements through the block, as though the structure itself is alive and reacting to their presence. Unlike random echoes, these whispers often have a distinctly human quality, soft but articulate, sometimes even forming fragmented sentences. Visitors have reported hearing their own names spoken in low tones, or snippets of conversation that seem eerily tied to the history of the block. Some investigators describe the whispers as unintelligible at first, only to become clear when listened to in isolation. A ghostly dialogue that vanishes when addressed or focused upon directly. Many believe these are the voices of former inmates, eternally repeating moments of their confinement, their despair, or perhaps warnings to those who intrude. The architecture of Cell Block 1 seems to amplify these experiences. The narrow corridors and high ceilings create natural echoes, but even after accounting for acoustics, many sounds remain unexplained. Footsteps, whispers, and distant laughter appear to originate from areas where no one could possibly be. Shadows flicker in peripheral vision, moving independently of light sources. These combined phenomena create an oppressive atmosphere, one that few visitors leave without feeling unsettled, their imaginations sharpened by the weight of history and the presence of the unexplained. Photographic and audio evidence has been recorded by numerous paranormal teams. Images sometimes capture faint outlines of figures behind cell bars or hovering near corridors, and audio recordings frequently pick up sounds absent during direct observation. These include footsteps pacing back and forth, the distinct clang of metal on metal, and whispers that echo with clarity when played back. Some investigators have reported spikes in electromagnetic fields, particularly near specific cells that were historically sites of violence or punishment. These readings suggest a lingering energy, a residual imprint of the intense emotions, fear, and suffering that permeated the block for over a century. Visitors consistently report a psychological impact that goes beyond mere fear. There is a weight in the air, a persistent sense of unease, as if the block itself is aware of their presence. Time can feel distorted. Minutes seem to stretch unnaturally, and the corridor seems longer than it should be. Many describe the sensation of being followed, of having unseen eyes track every movement. For some, this leads to profound anxiety, a feeling of imminent threat that vanishes as soon as the exit is reached. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena in Cell Block 1 ensures that each experience is personal, intense, and unforgettable. In addition to modern visitors, former staff and inmates have also recounted unusual experiences. Guards have reported seeing fleeting figures while patrolling the block, hearing doors slam without cause, and feeling sudden chills in isolated areas. Inmates who served in Cell Block 1 have described cold spots, whispers, and shadows, lending credibility to reports from outside observers. This consistency over decades reinforces the Block's reputation as one of the most active paranormal zones within Joliet Correctional Center. The haunting of Cell Block 1 is not limited to any single type of activity. Shadowy figures, slamming doors, whispers, and unexplained tactile sensations combine to create an environment that feels both oppressive and alive. It is a space where the past refuses to rest, where the memories and energies of countless inmates persist in a ghostly replay. For those who venture into Cell Block 1, the experience is not merely one of fear. It is a confrontation with history, with human suffering, and with a presence that refuses to be ignored. The Menard workshop in Chester, Illinois, has long been a place shrouded in mystery and whispered tales of ghostly activity. Originally a working space for inmates to learn trades and occupy their days, the workshop was once filled with the clatter of tools, the rhythmic hum of machinery, and the voices of men working under strict supervision. Decades later, long after the prison's operations changed and sections of the facility were abandoned, this area has become notorious among visitors and paranormal investigators for inexplicable occurrences. Apparitions, moving objects, and phantom sounds have made the Menard workshop one of the most unsettling locations within the prison complex. Upon entering the workshop, visitors often describe a sudden shift in atmosphere. The air feels thick, charged with an almost tangible presence, and a chill often runs through the room, even on warm days. The large, open space, once buzzing with activity, now stands silent, yet the echoes of the past seem alive. Many report hearing footsteps that do not belong to any visible person, the clanging of metal on metal, and the squeal of machinery that hasn't been powered in decades. Some claim these sounds are rhythmic, eerily matching the pace of how the workshop would have functioned during its operational years. Shadowy figures are a common sight in the workshop. Visitors have reported seeing shapes moving along the walls or around machinery, often dressed in the clothing of early to mid-20th century inmates. These figures sometimes appear fully formed, walking purposefully as if performing tasks, only to vanish when approached. Others are described as partial silhouettes, their outlines flickering in the corners of vision. One consistent report is the apparition of a man operating a lathe or hammering at a workbench, with tools in hand. Even though the machinery remains cold and motionless, witnesses often feel a presence beside them, an invisible hand guiding or directing the work, as though the spirits are still bound to their routines. Tools moving on their own is another frequently reported phenomenon. Hammers, wrenches, and other implements occasionally appear out of place, sometimes falling from shelves or rolling across tables without any human intervention. Some investigators have caught fleeting glimpses of tools lifting slightly, as if an unseen hand is using them. On several occasions, multiple objects have been reported to move simultaneously, accompanied by sudden, unexplained noises, creating the impression that a full workshop is alive with activity once again. These occurrences are often unpredictable, heightening the sense of unease in the room. Phantom machinery sounds are also a hallmark of the Menard workshop. Visitors frequently hear the grinding of gears, the clattering of presses, or the rhythmic tapping of tools on metal surfaces, yet no machines are powered. These noises can be startling, echoing through the workshop with a clarity that suggests someone is actively working. Some witnesses report hearing the familiar sounds of tasks being performed, saws cutting through wood, drills turning in old benches, or the thud of hammers striking metal. Others have reported hearing voices calling instructions or murmuring quietly, the echoes of supervision from guards or fellow inmates, adding another layer of eerie realism to the experience. Temperature fluctuations are a recurring feature as well. The workshop is often reported to have sudden cold spots, localized drops in temperature that occur without explanation. Visitors frequently feel a chill at their shoulders or the back of their necks, sometimes accompanied by the sensation of being brushed past by an unseen figure. Investigators using thermographic equipment have recorded cold spots near machinery or workbenches where apparitions have been sighted, suggesting that these areas hold concentrated paranormal energy. The combination of cold drafts, moving tools, and shadowy figures creates an environment that is unnervingly lifelike, as though the workshop itself remembers the activities and struggles of its past occupants. Whispers and low murmurs are another common feature. Some visitors describe faint voices echoing through the space, almost like conversations carried from decades past. Names are sometimes spoken, or instructions given in clipped, authoritative tones, as if guards or instructors are guiding unseen inmates through their tasks. These whispers often vanish when one tries to listen closely, leaving only the echo of a room that was once alive with labor. Paranormal investigators note that these auditory phenomena seem to respond to human presence, intensifying when observers linger in certain parts of the workshop, as if the spirits are aware of being watched. Many people report a sense of being followed in the Menard workshop. Even when standing alone, the feeling that unseen eyes are tracking every movement is common. Shadows in the corners seem to move independently of light sources, and the feeling of oppressive presence can intensify the longer one remains. Some visitors report sudden feelings of dread or panic, prompting them to leave, only to find the sensation lingering briefly outside the workshop. Photographic evidence has captured blurred forms near machinery and workbenches, and audio recordings have picked up unexplained sounds consistent with hammering, sawing, and metal striking metal. Some investigators have even recorded faint footsteps pacing along old catwalks above the workshop floor. These reports, consistent across decades of observation, reinforce the belief that the Menard workshop remains a space inhabited by residual energy from the prison's operational past. For those who enter, the Menard workshop is more than just a room filled with empty benches and rusting machines. It is a living echo of the prison's history. Shadowy figures perform tasks as they did decades ago. Tools move without hands, and disembodied sounds create a tapestry of labor and life that refuses to fade. The workshop stands as a chilling testament to the presence of spirits unwilling to leave, tethered to the work, the space, and the routines they once knew so well. The hospital wing of Dixon Correctional Center has long been a source of eerie stories and chilling encounters. Originally intended to provide medical care to inmates, this section of the prison has witnessed decades of suffering, illness, and death. Over the years, whispers have spread that the wing is haunted by those who never truly left, their spirits lingering among the abandoned hospital beds, cold floors, and empty corridors. Visitors, investigators, and former staff alike have reported a range of unexplained phenomena, from phantom voices to sudden chills, creating an atmosphere of tension and fear that persists to this day. Walking into the hospital wing, the first sensation many describe is a sudden drop in temperature. Even on warm days, the air feels heavy and cold, as if the walls themselves are exhaling the lingering sorrow of the past. These temperature fluctuations are often localized, with certain areas, such as near old patient beds or medical equipment, noticeably colder than the surrounding spaces. Paranormal investigators have noted that these drops often coincide with other phenomena, such as disembodied sounds or moving shadows, suggesting that certain locations within the wing serve as focal points for spiritual activity. Phantom voices are among the most commonly reported occurrences in the Dixon Hospital wing. Visitors often hear whispers calling for help, cries of pain, or the faint murmurs of conversations that seem to drift from room to room. Some describe hearing the names of inmates spoken clearly, even though no one is nearby. Others report hearing the sound of coughing, moaning, or the shuffling of footsteps along the corridors. These auditory experiences are often unsettlingly precise, giving the impression that the voices belong to real people trapped in their final moments. Many who have explored the wing report feeling compelled to respond as though the spirits are attempting to communicate. But upon investigation, the halls remain empty and silent. Shadowy figures are frequently seen near the abandoned hospital beds. These forms are often fleeting, glimpsed from the corner of the eye, only to vanish when looked at directly. Some appear as complete silhouettes, occasionally moving slowly along the corridors or standing by beds as though watching over them. Others are described as vague shapes that flicker in and out of existence, their presence accompanied by a subtle but distinct feeling of being observed. Witnesses have recounted moments where they feel a brush of air or a pressure near them, as if a spirit has passed close by, leaving an almost tangible sense of contact. Medical equipment left behind in the wing seems to attract paranormal activity. Wheelchairs occasionally rock slightly on their own, for poles tilt without being touched, and old stretchers appear to shift position. Some visitors have reported hearing the rhythmic sounds of hospital machinery, such as the beeping of monitors or the hiss of medical gases. Despite all equipment being unplugged or removed, others have noticed the faint echo of nurses' calls or the rattling of carts moving through hallways that have been long abandoned. These occurrences reinforce the sense that the hospital wing is still alive with echoes of the past, a place where the labor and suffering of those within continue to linger. Many who explore the Dixon Hospital wing also describe sudden feelings of dread and unease. The oppressive atmosphere is often accompanied by the sensation of being watched or followed. Shadows in the corners of rooms sometimes appear to move independently of light sources, creating the impression of unseen observers. Visitors frequently report that these feelings intensify the longer they remain in the wing, culminating in sudden, inexplicable chills or goosebumps. Paranormal investigators note that the combination of low lighting, long corridors, and the knowledge of the wing's tragic history likely amplifies these perceptions. But the consistency of reports across decades suggests something more than mere imagination. Some of the most unsettling experiences involve direct interactions with the spirits. Visitors have reported hearing knocks on walls or doors, seeing objects move, or even feeling touches on their shoulders or arms. These incidents often occur near beds where inmates once lay, or along hallways where patients were frequently wheeled for treatment. The intensity of these experiences varies, but many who have encountered them describe a profound sense of sadness, as if the spirits are attempting to communicate the pain and fear they endured while alive. Visual phenomena are also commonly reported. Shadowy figures sometimes appear in windows or in the reflection of glass panels, creating the illusion of movement in spaces that are otherwise empty. Occasionally, visitors claim to see fleeting images of people lying in beds, their faces turned away or obscured, vanishing as soon as they focus on them. Light anomalies are also frequent, including flickering overhead fixtures, glowing orbs, or beams of light that appear to originate from no discernible source. Many believe these manifestations are residual energy from the tragic events that occurred within the wing, echoing across time. For those who venture into the Dixon Hospital wing, the experience is one that lingers long after leaving. A combination of phantom voices, moving shadows, sudden temperature drops, and strange light phenomena creates a place that feels haunted in every sense of the word. Visitors often leave feeling as if they have stepped into a space where the past and present overlap, a liminal zone where spirits trapped by illness, neglect, or trauma continue to exist alongside the living. Despite its abandonment and the passage of time, the hospital wing remains a site of paranormal interest. Investigators continue to document encounters, recording unexplained sounds, and capturing visual anomalies on camera. Local lore keeps the stories alive, warning those who might enter at night to expect more than just silence and empty beds. The spirits of Dixon Correctional Center's hospital wing seem unwilling to leave, tethered to the rooms where they suffered and died, creating a chilling reminder that some places never truly forget the lives once contained within them. The solitary confinement wing at Big Muddy River Correctional Center in Ena is widely regarded as one of the most haunted areas of the prison. Built to isolate the most difficult or dangerous inmates, this section of the facility has a dark reputation, steeped in stories of despair, suffering, and psychological torment. Over the years, visitors, staff, and paranormal investigators have reported a series of disturbing phenomena that suggest the spirits of those who endured its oppressive confines have never truly left, from sudden feelings of panic to eerie whispers in the darkness. The wing is an unsettling place where the line between the living and the dead seems to blur. Entering the solitary wing, the first sensation most report is a profound and immediate sense of dread. The narrow, windowless corridors amplify even the smallest sounds, creating an atmosphere where silence itself feels oppressive. Temperatures fluctuate dramatically, with certain cells or hallways feeling unnaturally cold. Many believe these chilling drafts are tied to spiritual activity, the lingering energy of inmates who spent long, grueling hours in isolation. Visitors often comment that even on a warm day, the air in the solitary wing carries a weight that is both physical and emotional, pressing down on anyone who steps inside. Whispers are among the most commonly reported paranormal phenomena in Big Muddy's solitary wing. These are not random or indistinct noises. Many witnesses describe hearing voices, call their names, or faint murmurs that resemble conversations long forgotten. Some say the whispers echo the thoughts or last words of inmates who died in confinement, their anguish reverberating through the narrow corridors. The whispers seem to move along the hallways, sometimes following visitors as they walk, creating an unnerving sense that the past is actively present, watching and reacting to intruders. Panic and anxiety are frequent effects of spending time in the solitary wing. Even those who enter voluntarily for investigation report sudden, inexplicable feelings of fear. Heart rates accelerate without cause, and a deep unease can wash over the entire body. Some describe a sensation as if unseen eyes are constantly observing them, paired with the sense that something is pacing just out of sight. Paranormal investigators note that these experiences are often accompanied by other manifestations, such as shadowy figures, flickering lights, or moving objects, which reinforce the overwhelming feeling of being surrounded by unseen presences. Shadowy figures are a hallmark of the haunting in Big Muddy's solitary wing. Witnesses have reported seeing dark forms moving deliberately along corridors, sometimes pausing outside a cell or vanishing into the wall. These figures are rarely fully visible. More often, they are glimpsed from the corner of the eye, fading when directly observed. In some cases, visitors have seen these shadows pacing in ways that mirror the behavior of prisoners who spent years confined within the same narrow spaces. The recurring movements suggest that the spirits are reenacting the restlessness and tension of their lives behind bars. Objects occasionally move without explanation in the solitary wing. Cell doors may creak or slam unexpectedly, even when securely locked, and small items left on benches or tables have been reported to shift or fall without cause. Some visitors claim to feel a light touch on their shoulders or arms, as if a ghostly presence is brushing past. Others recount hearing the faint sound of chains rattling or the scuff of footsteps echoing down empty corridors. These occurrences often coincide with the most intense feelings of fear, reinforcing the sense that the wing is alive with the memories of those who suffered there. The narrow and windowless nature of the solitary wing seems to amplify the haunting. Every creak, whisper, or draft is magnified, creating an environment where the imagination and perception of visitors are heightened. Paranormal investigators note that while the architecture contributes to the intensity of experiences, the consistency and specificity of reports across decades point to more than just psychological effects. The wing appears to retain a tangible, lingering presence of the inmate's pain, echoing in every corner and cell. In addition to auditory and visual phenomena, some visitors report a profound sense of oppression, as if the energy in the wing actively resists intrusion. Those who have spent time in the cells often speak of a feeling of being watched, followed, or even herded by unseen entities. In some cases, investigators have reported devices malfunctioning, cameras failing, and electronic equipment behaving erratically in specific areas of the wings. Many believe these occurrences are manifestations of the spirit's awareness, their unrest so potent that it interferes with the physical world. The solitary confinement wing at Big Muddy is more than just an abandoned or restricted area. It is a repository of suffering and lost humanity. Phantom whispers, shadowy figures, and sudden, inexplicable chills create an environment that feels alive with the echoes of the past. Visitors report experiences that range from subtle sensations of unease to intense episodes of fear, suggesting that the spirits of those who endured isolation continue to inhabit the narrow corridors and cells. For those who enter, the solitary wing offers a haunting encounter with the psychological and emotional residue of confinement. The spirits seem to mirror the torment of their former lives, pacing, whispering, and watching. Every creaking door, cold draft, and flickering shadow serves as a reminder that the human experience, particularly in a place of punishment and isolation, can leave a lasting imprint. In Big Muddy's solitary wing, the suffering of the past lingers palpably, a chilling testament to lives trapped behind walls, and a ghostly warning to anyone who dares to step inside. The exercise cage at Tom's Correctional Center, once a stark and heavily monitored outdoor space, has earned a reputation as one of the most unnerving locations on the facility's grounds. Though the prison officially closed in 2013, stories of paranormal activity have persisted, drawing both curious visitors and paranormal investigators to its hauntingly silent enclosures. The cage, a small, caged area once used to allow inmates brief periods of outdoor movement, now stands abandoned. Its chain-link walls, reinforced gates, and oppressive atmosphere seem to trap not only the physical, but also the spiritual. Remnants of the men who once walked within its confines, reports of ghostly figures pacing the perimeter, disembodied voices, and inexplicable sensations of being watched have made the Tom's exercise cage a focal point of Illinois prison hauntings. Visitors who approach the exercise cage for the first time often describe a palpable heaviness in the air. The space, though exposed to sunlight during the day, retains an oppressive quality that seems to press down on anyone who steps inside. Paranormal investigators often note that this sensation intensifies as evening falls, when shadows stretch long across the ground and the temperature seems to drop abruptly without explanation. Many who have entered the cage report a chilling cold, often accompanied by the feeling of unseen eyes tracking every movement. This pervasive sense of being watched is so strong that some visitors abandon their investigation entirely, unnerved by the invisible presence that seems to linger just beyond perception. One of the most common phenomena reported at the exercise cage is the appearance of ghostly figures. Witnesses have described seeing shadowy forms pacing the perimeter of the cage, moving with a deliberate, almost purposeful gait. These figures are rarely fully visible. More often, they are glimpsed from the corner of the eye, vanishing when directly observed. Some visitors report seeing multiple figures, as if the spirits of several inmates are trapped in a perpetual loop, reenacting the time they spent within the cage. Paranormal investigators suggest that these apparitions are residual energy, imprinted upon the environment by the emotional and physical stress endured by prisoners during their time in isolation. Alongside these visual phenomena, auditory experiences are frequently reported. Disembodied voices, ranging from muffled shouting to loud, echoing laughter, have been heard emanating from the cage. Some describe hearing taunts or arguments that seem eerily specific, as if replaying real events from decades past. Others have reported hearing the sounds of keys jingling or gates rattling, as though a correctional officer is making rounds in a space now devoid of human life. In some accounts, the laughter and shouting appear to come directly from empty cells adjacent to the cage, even when no one is present in the building. These auditory phenomena often coincide with visual sightings of shadowy figures, creating an overwhelming sense that the past is actively present. The cage also seems to respond to the fear and tension of those who enter. Visitors report that the sensations of being followed or watched intensify the longer they remain, and that shadowy figures sometimes appear or disappear in direct response to movement. Paranormal investigators have noted instances where electronic devices malfunctioned inexplicably, while inside the cage flashlights flickering, cameras failing, and recorders picking up strange, low-frequency sounds. Some suggest that the spirits of the inmates retain a form of awareness, interacting with both the living and the physical environment. The haunting extends beyond simple sightings and sounds. The combination of narrow sightlines created by the cage's walls, the oppressive atmosphere, and the weight of the prison's history appears to amplify both psychological and paranormal experiences. Even seasoned investigators note that time seems distorted within the cage. Moments stretch endlessly, and the sense of isolation becomes almost tangible. Some have described feeling the presence of multiple spirits simultaneously, as though the cage is populated by an invisible population still bound to the routine and constraints of prison life. The Tom's exercise cage stands as a stark symbol of confinement, both physical and spiritual. Its chain-link walls and reinforced gates may no longer hold living prisoners, but according to reports, they still confine the echoes of those who suffered there. Shadowy figures pacing the perimeter, disembodied voices, and sudden drops in temperature create a chilling environment that leaves little doubt in the minds of visitors that the space is haunted. Every step into the cage seems to awaken the memories of pain, isolation, and frustration that permeated the lives of inmates subjected to Tom's extreme security measures. Even outside of paranormal investigations, locals and former staff have shared stories of unexplained activity surrounding the cage. Lights flickering at night, the faint sound of footsteps along the fence line, and distant shouts heard across the prison grounds are consistent with reports from investigators. These recurring phenomena reinforce the idea that the cage is more than just a relic of the prison. It is a vessel containing the residual energy of intense human suffering. The chapel at Stateville Prison in Crest Hill is an eerie juxtaposition of solemn beauty and haunting history. Built to offer moments of reflection, prayer, and fleeting hope to inmates confined within the prison's formidable walls, the chapel has witnessed generations of men grappling with despair, guilt, and the weight of punishment. Yet, decades after its construction, the chapel has become more than a place of spiritual solace. Reports of paranormal activity suggest that the echoes of past congregations, both human and spectral, still linger in the pews, aisles, and altar. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike have reported ghostly congregations, whispers, and shadowy figures kneeling where no living person sits, turning this once serene space into a focal point for the supernatural. Upon entering the chapel, visitors immediately note an unusual atmosphere. The air feels heavy and almost charged, as though carrying the collective energy of countless prayers, confessions, and moments of anguish. Light filtering through the tall, stained glass windows casts patterns across the stone floor. But those patterns seem to shift subtly, almost imperceptibly, when no one is watching. Many first-time explorers report a creeping sense of unease, a feeling that they are not alone even when the room is empty. This initial impression is often compounded by sudden drops in temperature, especially near the altar and the rows of wooden pews, where shadows gather inexplicably in corners and under benches. The most frequently reported phenomena in the chapel are the apparitions of ghostly congregations. Witnesses describe figures dressed in mid-20th century prison garb, sitting in pews or kneeling in silent prayer. These figures often appear faint and semi-transparent, their heads bowed, moving subtly as though caught between devotion and sorrow. Some visitors claim they can hear the soft murmur of prayers or hymns, barely audible but unmistakably human. Occasionally, the chanting of a hymn rises unexpectedly, echoing through the stone walls and fading as abruptly as it began. Paranormal investigators suggest that these manifestations are residual energy, the remnants of spiritual activity recorded within the building over decades of devotion and desperation. Whispers are another common experience in the chapel. People report hearing low, indistinct voices that seem to drift from the pews or along the walls. Some visitors say these whispers call their names or repeat fragments of past conversations, prayers, or confessions. In many cases, the whispers are fleeting, vanishing the moment one tries to locate their source. Investigators using audio recording devices have occasionally captured faint, unintelligible murmurs that are absent when devices are later replayed outside the chapel, reinforcing the sense that the voices belong solely to the space itself. Shadowy figures also play a prominent role in the chapel's haunted reputation. Visitors often see forms kneeling in pews where no one is present, or standing silently near the altar, vanishing when approached directly. Some have reported glimpses of figures walking the aisles, their outlines blurred as though caught between this world and the next. Others describe seeing shadows in peripheral vision that disappear the instant attention is focused on them. Paranormal specialists believe these phenomena could be a combination of residual energy and intelligent apparitions, potentially influenced by the emotions of those entering the chapel. The chapel is not only haunted visually and auditorily, but also seems to affect visitors on a physical and emotional level. Many report sudden feelings of sadness, despair, or guilt while inside, even if they have no personal connection to the prison or its former inmates. Cold spots and sudden gusts of wind occur without any apparent source, particularly near the altar, pulpit, and back rows of pews. Some visitors have felt an invisible pressure, as though someone or multiple someones were standing or kneeling immediately behind them, even when the space is completely empty. These sensations often intensify after sunset, when natural light wanes and shadows dominate the interior. Over the years, accounts of paranormal activity in the chapel have come from former staff, visitors, and researchers alike. Corrections officers have reported hearing footsteps echoing in the empty aisles, doors creaking open or closing with no wind, and even fleeting glimpses of figures in long-forgotten religious robes. Paranormal investigators have documented audio anomalies, EMF spikes, and temperature fluctuations correlating with visual sightings of shadowy figures and congregational activity. Even casual visitors often describe the same phenomena: whispers, sudden chills, and the sense that the chapel is alive with unseen presences. The haunting in the chapel seems inextricably tied to the dual nature of its history. As a space designed for reflection, confession, and spiritual release, it became a repository for the hopes, fears, and emotional turbulence of the prison population. Many men spent years attending services here, seeking solace or absolution, while others may have only glimpsed the chapel through barred windows, never able to partake fully in its rituals. The residual energy left behind reflects both the moments of fleeting comfort and the lingering despair of confinement, creating an atmosphere that is both solemn and chilling. For those who step inside, the chapel is a place where the past is vividly present. Shadowy congregations kneel, whispering voices echo, and unseen hands seem to brush along the pews. Every step, every glance can bring a new encounter, a figure disappearing into the stained glass light, a hymn sung by a voice no living soul can claim, or a shadow pacing silently in the back row. The presence of the spiritual past is constant, an invisible congregation that continues to worship, mourn, and exist within the walls of Stateville Prison. The dining hall at Pontiac Correctional Center in Pontiac, Illinois, stands as a silent witness to decades of life behind bars. Yet, it has become far more than a place for meals. Since the prison's earliest days, the dining hall has hosted the routine bustle of inmates and staff. Clanging trays, the murmur of conversation, and the occasional laughter echoing over long tables. Today, However, the room is empty, the tables long cleared, and the once lively chatter replaced by silence. But according to numerous reports, that silence is deceptive. Visitors, staff, and paranormal investigators have described a persistent haunting in the space, where ghostly sounds of clattering dishes, footsteps, and faint laughter persist, suggesting that the dining hall's spectral residents are far from finished with their daily routines. Those who enter the dining hall immediately sense something off. The air is heavy and slightly cold, carrying a feeling that the energy of countless former occupants lingers. Even in broad daylight, shadows seem to shift unnaturally along the walls, stretching across the floor or gliding beneath the tables. Some visitors report feeling the sensation of being followed by unseen presences, footsteps echoing behind them that vanish when they turn around. Others have said that their voices sound muted, as though the room itself absorbs sound, leaving only whispers carried from nowhere. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the auditory activity. Witnesses describe the unmistakable clatter of trays and utensils, dishes being stacked or dropped, and the distant hum of conversations no longer possible in the abandoned facility. Sometimes, these sounds come in bursts, as if a busy meal service is taking place, only to stop abruptly, leaving a silence heavier than before. Many claim to hear faint laughter echoing from across the hall, often described as playful yet hollow, resonating with an eerie quality that seems out of place in the empty dining hall. The laughter is rarely sustained, appearing in short, sudden bursts, leaving a lingering sense that unseen eyes are observing. Footsteps are another recurring element of the Pontiac dining hall haunting. Visitors frequently report hearing heavy, shuffling footsteps crossing the floor or pacing between rows of tables. The steps vary in size and weight, sometimes sounding like the large boots of an inmate, other times lighter, more precise, as though a staff member were moving through the hall. In some accounts, multiple sets of footsteps occur simultaneously, crossing paths in impossible patterns or stopping suddenly at certain tables, suggesting the presence of several spectral entities. Investigators have noted that these footsteps often follow the pattern of human movement, but lack any visible source, vanishing when one tries to confront them. Shadowy figures are also seen by those brave enough to stay in the dining hall after dark. Some witnesses describe vague humanoid shapes moving between tables or along the walls, disappearing when directly observed. Others report seeing figures seated at tables, heads bowed, as if caught mid-meal, their forms flickering like smoke before vanishing entirely. Paranormal researchers suggest that these figures may be residual energy, manifestations of inmates and staff repeating habitual actions from the past, or perhaps intelligent spirits aware of the living observers. Many visitors have also reported experiencing physical sensations. Sudden chills are common, often accompanied by the feeling of being lightly brushed by invisible hands, or a subtle pressure along the spine. Some have experienced the unmistakable sensation of being watched, with eyes tracking movements, even in empty spaces. Others describe a sense of time distortion, where minutes feel like hours, or familiar sounds from the prison's past echo in impossible ways, amplifying fear and disorientation. These physical manifestations contribute to the perception that the Pontiac dining hall is not just haunted, but alive with the memories and energies of its past occupants. The history of the dining hall adds weight to its eerie reputation. For decades, this room was central to daily life in Pontiac Correctional Center. Inmates lined up for meals, staff moved briskly along service lines, and the sounds of trays, utensils, and conversation formed a constant background hum. Accidents, illnesses, and even deaths occurred within the walls, leaving emotional residues of pain, joy, and exhaustion. Paranormal accounts often reference these elements, with sounds or apparitions appearing near areas where significant events once occurred. Some visitors claim to see apparitions at tables where tragic incidents happened, or hear whispers near service areas once crowded with staff. Reports of activity in the dining hall have been consistent across generations of witnesses. Corrections officers working late shifts describe unexplained clattering or footsteps when no one else is present. Paranormal investigators frequently record audio anomalies, such as disembodied voices, plates moving with no visible cause, or sudden environmental changes. Many accounts include simultaneous visual and auditory phenomena, shadowy figures moving as unseen dishes clatter, or footsteps pacing as laughter echoes, creating a multisensory experience that is difficult to dismiss. Even casual visitors report similar experiences, describing sensations of unease, fleeting glimpses of figures, and the eerie feeling that they are not alone. Some paranormal experts theorize that the dining hall is a repository of residual energy. The repetition of daily routines over decades, meals served, conversations held, laughter shared, and moments of despair endured, may have left an imprint on the physical space. The combination of emotional energy, historical events, and the unique acoustics of the large hall could explain why so many sensory experiences are reported. Others suggest that the spirits may be sentient, capable of interacting subtly with the living, guiding or observing, yet remaining just beyond reach. The upper floors of Joliet Correctional Center in Joliet, Illinois, have long been the subject of whispers and rumors among locals, paranormal investigators, and those daring enough to explore the historic prison, towering above the massive stone walls. These floors were once home to cell blocks filled with inmates, administrative offices, and passageways that saw decades of harsh punishment, fleeting hope, and occasional violence. Today, the upper levels are abandoned, their floors creaking beneath each cautious step, their walls echoing with sounds from a time long past. Yet, despite the decay and silence, the upper floors are far from empty. Numerous reports suggest that restless spirits linger here, their presence felt in shadowy figures, sudden door movements, and whispers that seem to drift endlessly through the hallways. Visitors entering the upper floors often feel an immediate sense of unease. The air is heavy, carrying a chill that seems unnatural even in warm weather, and shadows appear to cling to corners and ceilings, moving subtly when no one else is present. The long corridors amplify even the faintest sound, a distant creak of the floorboards, the faint shifting of metal hinges, or the soft murmur of voices that cannot be traced to a living source. Some witnesses claim to have felt invisible eyes watching them as they navigate the hallways. A sensation so intense, it compels many to look over their shoulders repeatedly, though nothing appears in sight. One of the most commonly reported phenomena on the upper floors is the appearance of shadowy figures. Visitors describe seeing vague, humanoid forms standing silently in the doorways or peering from cell windows. Sometimes, these shadows appear at the end of hallways, motionless yet profoundly unsettling, vanishing whenever approached or confronted directly. In other cases, witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of figures walking along the corridors, their movements deliberate but almost too quick to track, disappearing into walls or fading into the darkness. Some of these apparitions resemble former inmates, often described wearing period prison uniforms, while others appear more indistinct, almost as if they are echoes of those who once roamed these halls. Doors opening and closing on the upper floors is another frequently cited phenomenon. Heavy wooden doors that were once sealed for security now move inexplicably, sometimes swinging open slowly, other times slamming shut with force. Visitors have reported standing in front of a closed door only to have it suddenly burst open, revealing nothing beyond. Some investigators have suggested that these movements are manifestations of restless energy, perhaps linked to the countless individuals who spent hours confined within the cells behind these doors. Others believe the doors act as gateways, reacting to the presence or intentions of those who traverse the hallways. Whispers and disembodied voices are a recurring theme among accounts of the upper floors. Some visitors hear murmurs that seem to come from nowhere, drifting along the corridors with clarity but no identifiable source. These whispers often include indistinct phrases, the repetition of names, or even low warnings like "leave now" or "don't come closer." In certain cases, paranormal investigators have recorded voices calling out to them, sometimes responding to questions or following their movements through the hallways. The acoustic properties of the upper floors, with narrow corridors and high ceilings, amplify these auditory phenomena, creating an unnerving effect that convinces many that the prison itself remembers every sound from its past. Physical sensations are also commonly reported. Many who venture to the upper floors describe sudden drops in temperature, pockets of cold that appear and disappear unpredictably. Some report feeling a light brush against their arm or back, as though someone passed close by. Others describe an oppressive heaviness in certain sections, a weight that seems to press on the chest and slow movement. These sensations often coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or audible anomalies, reinforcing the impression that the upper floors are charged with residual or sentient energy. The history of the upper floors of Joliet Correctional Center lends context to these experiences. Constructed in the mid-19th century, the prison was notorious for its harsh conditions and overcrowding. Upper floors were home to inmates in some of the most confined cells, where they spent countless hours under strict supervision and endured difficult living conditions. Many suffered violent deaths, illness, or the psychological toll of isolation. Over time, the energy of these experiences seems to have imprinted itself upon the space, leaving echoes of fear, anger, and despair that some believe are now experienced as paranormal phenomena. Paranormal investigators frequently note patterns in the haunting activity. Shadowy figures often appear near stairwells, cell windows, and corners of hallways where inmates were historically confined. Doors tend to react unpredictably, sometimes following visitors from room to room. Whispers often escalate in intensity when multiple people are present, as if the spirits are aware of observers and seeking interaction. Investigators have also recorded unexplained audio anomalies, cold spots, and sudden feelings of dread that cannot be attributed to environmental factors alone. Despite the unsettling reports, some visitors describe a strange fascination with the upper floors. There is a palpable sense that the spirits are connected to the place, tied to memories of the prison and the lives lived and lost within its walls. Many explorers speak of fleeting glimpses of the past figures moving along hallways as they once did, shadows pausing at cell doors, whispers echoing instructions or conversations from decades ago. The upper floors are, in a sense, a liminal space, a boundary between the living and the dead, where the weight of history is tangible and the presence of those long gone is undeniable. Menard Correctional Center in Chester, Illinois, is a sprawling facility with a history steeped in hardship, despair, and violence. Among its many wings and cell blocks, Cell Block C has garnered a particularly chilling reputation, considered by many to be one of the most haunted areas of the prison. It is a place where the weight of decades of human suffering seems to linger, leaving behind echoes of pain, fear, and unresolved anguish. Visitors who enter this block often report experiences that are difficult to explain, from shadowy figures and disembodied voices to overwhelming sensations of being watched or pressed upon by unseen forces. Cell Block C was once home to hundreds of inmates, many serving long sentences under harsh conditions. The cells were small, cold, and sparsely furnished, each one a confined space where despair could easily fester. Reports suggest that some prisoners never left the block alive, succumbing to illness, violence, or neglect. Over the years, stories began to circulate about the lingering presence of these men, their suffering somehow imprinted on the very walls, floor, and air of Cell Block C. Modern visitors often describe stepping into the block and immediately sensing an oppressive atmosphere, a heaviness that weighs on the chest and fills the lungs with a sense of dread. One of the most commonly reported phenomena in Cell Block C is the sighting of shadowy figures standing silently behind the bars. Witnesses describe vague humanoid shapes that seem to watch them as they move through the corridors. These figures often appear in peripheral vision and vanish when directly confronted, leaving only the chill of their presence behind. In some accounts, multiple figures appear at once, standing motionless as if frozen in time, their forms eerily human, yet impossibly insubstantial. Visitors frequently describe the unnerving sensation of being observed by dozens of invisible eyes, as if the spirits of former inmates are still trapped behind their bars, unable to leave the confines of the prison even in death. Disembodied voices are another hallmark of haunting activity in Cell Block C. Many who explore the area report hearing faint whispers, soft murmurs, or even chanting voices that seem to call out names. Some have claimed to hear their own names spoken by unseen mouths, sometimes in warning, other times in sorrowful lament. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of these voices, often indistinct but undeniably present, carrying a weight that suggests they are more than mere echoes. The chanting sometimes rises and falls in intensity, as though reacting to the presence or emotions of the visitor. These auditory phenomena reinforce the impression that the spirits inhabiting Cell Block C are aware of intruders and may be attempting to communicate or simply make their presence known. Physical sensations accompany many reported encounters. Visitors have described sudden drops in temperature, often accompanied by a sense of suffocating pressure, as if the weight of the souls trapped within the block has settled upon them. Some report being touched lightly on the shoulder or back, a sensation both chilling and invisible. Others describe feelings of unease so intense that walking through the block becomes physically exhausting, their bodies reacting to the oppressive energy that seems to hang in the air. These phenomena are often accompanied by visual and auditory sightings, creating a multisensory experience that makes it clear to witnesses that Cell Block C is far from empty. The architecture of the block seems to amplify these experiences. Long, narrow corridors lined with small, barred cells create an environment that traps sound and movement. Whispers echo along the hallways. Footsteps reverberate unnaturally, and shadows are cast and distorted by the flickering light that filters through broken windows or cracked fixtures. Many paranormal investigators note that certain areas within the block are particularly active, often aligning with locations where violent events or deaths were known to have occurred. Stairwells, corners of cells, and sections of the corridor where guards once stationed themselves are hotspots for reported activity, suggesting a connection between the traumatic history of the space and the phenomena observed today. Accounts from those who have spent time in Cell Block C often share a common theme: the sense that the space is alive with the memories and energies of the past. Some describe hearing the distant sounds of prison life footsteps, cell doors clanging, murmured conversations, even though the block has been abandoned for years. Others report fleeting glimpses of movement behind doors or the shadow of a figure passing quickly along the corridor, only to vanish when approached. The combination of visual, auditory, and physical phenomena creates an atmosphere that is profoundly unsettling, leaving visitors with the lingering sense that they have entered a place where the boundary between the living and the dead is thin and permeable. Despite the fear it evokes, Cell Block C also attracts those drawn to the paranormal. Investigators, thrill seekers, and historians alike are compelled to explore the space, hoping to document or experience firsthand the presence that has made the block infamous. Many leave with stories of encounters that defy explanation, each visitor adding to the growing lore surrounding the block. The haunting seems to persist not as a simple remnant of the past, but as a continuing presence, a reminder of the lives, struggles, and tragedies that unfolded within these walls. There you have it, 25 haunted prisons in Illinois where time stopped. From Joliet to Tom's, Menard to Dixon, these prisons are more than just buildings. They are tombs of memory, suffering, and restless spirits. Ghostly figures, whispers, and unexplained phenomena remind us that some places never forget, and some souls never truly leave. If tonight's journey through haunted prisons sent chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for more explorations into abandoned buildings, haunted institutions, and the shadows that linger just beyond the light. Keep your footsteps careful, your senses sharp, and your courage strong. Because in Illinois haunted prisons, time stopped long ago, and the inmates never left. Stay brave, stay curious, and good night.